How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone? And you're very welcome along to OTB AM this Monday morning. You've just missed my amazing impression of Robbie Savage.
Robbie Savage, and I was supposed to go full John Toshak.
You're supposed to finish the line, yeah?
What is it? What?
Why should he?
Oh, why should he? Sorry. And then it's Robbie Savage.
It's not John Toshak, it's whoever the TV presenter is. Because John Toshak is who they're talking about.
Ah, yes.
John Toshak does not have a mobile phone. Welcome along to OTB AM. We are bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and we've got a very, very jam-packed show for you all the way until 9:30 this morning. We've got tickets to give away to the game tonight against Gibraltar. Shane Ross didn't even have to ask us for these tickets. So we've got 4 to give away, and we'll tell you how you can win those in just a couple of minutes' time. May as well get this competition rolling fairly early on. Loads of other stuff to get to as well. We're going to talk about that game with both Nathan and Kevin Kilbane. The game is live on News Talk this evening from 7 o'clock, especially extended summer version of Off the Ball this evening with Joe and the lads from 7 o'clock, bringing you full live, uninterrupted commentary from the game against Gibraltar. We'll also be talking about the incredible performance of Rory McIlroy, who it turns out is the best golfer in the world when he puts his mind to it after closing around 61. Could have been a 59 at one point. It looked like, hang on a second, he might be about to do this as he blitzed the field in Canada just a week early. Or else this is the start of his run of form that takes him and sweeps him the whole way through the Open, the US Open of Pebble Beach this weekend, and the Open itself. And who knows, maybe it's the perfect end to the season for Rory. All he needs is about 3 weeks. Good form.
We just replay this conversation time and time again. It's like, we're always hitting form just at the right time. This is going to be it. The thing is, he's won the US Open. He doesn't have that mountain as we kind of always describe the pre-Masters week, where it's like, this is going to be Rory's week. He doesn't carry the same amount of weight. Now,
no.
The thing is...
Port Stewart will, though. Port Rush will.
Yeah, it will. Like, I mean...
I apologise. I've just given him the US Open there and rolled on his form for another 5 weeks, but that's okay. We can do that.
Like, the conversation around it now will be, will Pebble Beach suit Rory McIlroy? Because it's one of those where it's not suited so much to long hitters anymore. Like, my best mate Brooks Koepka is probably not going to win the US Open this week, which I'm devastated about, first of all. But Rory McIlroy is also a big hitter. But just because you're a big hitter, does that mean automatically that you're not one of the favourites for the competition? Of course not. Of course, Jordan Spieth will probably get a lot of money on him this week. Tiger will get a lot of money on him this week. We'll see how things go. I'd personally be tipping Jordan Spieth.
I want to see who John Duggan tips. We'll talk to him a little bit later on in the week to get his tips ahead of the US Open. We do have 2 pairs of tickets for Ireland's clash with Gibraltarians tonight. Is that the right word? I don't know. I just made it up. It is right. It is. Well done. Come on, Joseph. Just share today's stream and tell us who you'll bring along and answer this relatively simple question. What is the combined Irish goal tally of James McLean and Conor Horan? If you want to go to the match, you can collect these tickets from our office. We're just on Diggs Lane. So very close to St Stephen's Green, just off Grafton Street in Dublin City Centre. So if you're going to the match, you'd have to come here first, which is like about 20 minutes out of your way. So we do have 2 pairs of tickets to give away. Share the stream, tell us what's the combined goal tally of James McLean and Conor Horan. I don't know.
Very good question.
It's a low number.
Are we allowed to guess now instead of giving people help?
It's a low number.
Yeah, well,
so McLean
has won.
Yeah.
Against Georgia. McLean, obviously, Wales. And...
Is there many more?
I would go with 4 in total, perhaps.
Would you?
Like, I'm sorry to help everybody who's
but if you get it wrong, that's not great.
No, well, I could have just looked at the running order this morning and I would have got the answer, but I didn't do that.
Right.
So what is coming up?
We do coming up now, because I have a bit more to talk to you about, but that's all right.
That was a nice little segue there. I just said I'd roll with it.
The sports page is 7:35. We're going to talk golf in Ireland with Nathan Murphy at 7:50. Obviously, that's Rory McIlroy, and he's on commentary duty for us tonight. Michael Verney is going to join us in studio to talk about the re-emergence of the Leinster Hurling Championship as the one true hurling championship in provincial form. Because let's face it, Munster's been a complete dawdle this year so far, right? Brian McGuigan is going to join us at 8:25 to talk about the Tyrone and Armagh capitulations over the weekend. Alan Quinlan's going to join us at 8:40, and then Kevin Kilbane, if we can wake him up, will join us at 9 o'clock this morning. We'll round out the day with some sports news from Phil. Did you do much training over the weekend, Owen?
I got out on Saturday for a cycle.
Did you fix your bike?
I fixed my bike.
The chain had come off.
Guess who fixed it?
YouTube.
I fixed it.
Oh yeah, okay.
With my own, I actually came away from the bike and I was like, I fixed my bike, and I looked at my hands and they were black with oil. I was like, I feel like a man now.
Oh yeah.
So after...
All you had to do was pull the thing back and the chain popped up and you fixed it.
No, it was really complicated, okay? After that...
Owen came in and broke his... We established after Owen came in and broke his bike. I broke my bike. This is crap. I can't get it out. And it turned out his chain had come off.
Yeah, well, like, let me just finish my story here. So after I'd kind of gotten rid of my oil-stained hands and kind of got myself out of the trench, the level of testosterone I was then feeling after fixing a piece of a mechanism like a bike, a really complicated thing like a bike, obviously gave me the boost I needed to go for a cycle on my bicycle. I've started to realise there's gears on the right-hand side of the bike and there's gears on the left-hand side of the bike.
Yeah.
I think I've just been using the gears on the right-hand side of the bike.
Well, that's not that bad.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's
the one on the left is the big ones.
I don't understand that. Let's just go with that. I'll just use the ones on the right-hand side of the bike. It'll be fine. I think I can survive. Like, my mission between now and Saturday is just to survive.
How far did you go?
Not that long. Not that far. I didn't really measure. I think measuring your distance or your times is something for people who are a bit more advanced than me, or people who've done it 3 times.
Yeah.
So I think.
But you're in a competition here, you know. You're like.
Yeah, like I hate to let down all my fans out there, but ultimately the competition comes to me, and I didn't exactly ask for this. I'm just here to survive, not compete.
All right, let's bring you through the papers this morning. It's 7:36. Starting with the back of the Irish Independent this morning, and that is a picture of TJ Reid being fouled alongside Johnny Cohen. Yeah, sub Johnny Cohen came on and helped turn the game in Galway's favour. Tribe show true grit, but cynical display demonstrates why hurling badly needs a black card rule. Yeah, I mean, I think that hurling fans aren't thinking that we need a black card after that game. They're thinking, what a great game, as opposed to we need a black card. But anyway, has the black card, has it actually done the thing it was supposed to do? Or did people just decide, I'll continue to foul cynically and won't get a black card if this is at an important time of the game? It hasn't changed the game at all, has it?
Not really.
So doubling down on your mistake doesn't seem like a good idea for me. And actually hurling seems fine. There was like loads of yellow cards and there was a couple of reds, 3 reds. So happy days. Everybody got punished who was supposed to be punished.
I think the point is that you'd much rather see the forward go in and get to a one-on-one position with the goalkeeper rather than being pulled down and we have to watch TJ Reid tap over 25 frees per game.
Yeah, but Paul Murphy did exactly that and conceded a goal. So would he have been happier getting sent off earlier if he hadn't conceded the goal? I don't know. It's hard to tell.
I think that's kind of a less common situation, the Paul Murphy one, isn't it? I think in most situations...
He'd already been booked in that scenario, so maybe it is. McIlroy storms the Canadian title with stunning 61. McDowell holds nerve at last to book his place at the Open. It's great news for Graham McDowell. It would have been a real pain if he'd missed out on the Open in Portrush.
He had a cold beer last night.
Mick happy to sacrifice style for results. If it ends in a scrappy 1-0, I'm not bothered. Well, you should be, because goal difference matters. It's a real thing, right? We're supposed to try and score goals against the shittest team in the group.
Yeah, the goal difference might not matter.
Clare's 15-point defeat, not a catastrophe, says O'Neill on page 62 to 63. This is in the Indo this morning. Funny, the Indo don't report on the fact that Cian O'Neill had a go at them. No, can't see it anywhere. No, can't see it anywhere. The Times had it online, but I can't see it in the papers today. Maybe this is just a different version.
It is. It's definitely on a couple of the back pages, which we'll get to in a moment. Like, yeah, catastrophe. It's like knowing a catastrophe is going to happen. Does that lessen the fact that it's a catastrophe?
No, I mean...
It probably does, to be fair.
I don't know, because, like, look at Longford with their restorative victory over Carlo.
What was the name?
Who would you rather be?
What was that name of the big blimp in Germany that fell at flame? Yeah. Like, I mean, would that have been as much of a catastrophe if everybody known was... It obviously would have been, so...
Yeah, loads of people burned to horrible, hideous hydrogen death.
Obviously, that's my point. I'm saying it is. Even if you know a catastrophe is going to happen, it's still a catastrophe.
The mass murder of... well, not quite murder, but like...
conspiracy theorists...
Certainly manslaughter. Is, you put hydrogen in a balloon, what the hell do you expect is going to happen? It's massively flammable.
It's like the comparison is
I'm going to have this balloon of acid float over a city. What could possibly go wrong?
The funding of Dublin GA is the balloon of acid in this situation. We knew it was going to happen yesterday.
Fair enough.
It's still a catastrophe. The front page of the Irish Examiner sports section is banner bailout. Limerick crush shambolic Clare, but could prove their summer decider. Leinster ignites then. Galway find old form, but no one's writing off Kilkenny just yet. And Kearns KO. Tip boss departs after qualifier loss in Newry. Great stint, really, you could look back on for Liam Kearns as Tipperary manager 2016, getting them to an All-Ireland football semi-final.
Had that great night out at the All-Stars where you buttonholed him and his wife, drunkenly telling them how much you loved them?
That's simply not true. That was the Phillips Sports Manager of the Year.
Okay, right. Okay, sorry. Yeah, right. Sorry, my facts were incorrect. Win or butts? The Irish Sun had the word butts on their back page. Everybody, you can expect childish giggling for the rest of the show as a result of that. Canada Spry. Do you get it? Canada Spry. This is over your head, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a specific moment in time.
Canada Spry.
Canada Dry.
Oh, okay. That's right. It's Canada Dry, like a Lynx, bottle of Lynx.
No, it's a drink. It's like ginger ale. It was like the most famous global brand of ginger ale for about 15 years in the 80s.
Then what happened? Nash's got into the mix.
I don't know. The factory closed down in the Thai, and that was a lot of jobs went. Rory McIlroy warmed up for next week's US Open by winning the Canadian Open in style, hence the Canada Spry headline that is going over the head of all the millennials. O'Neill's fury to the tabloids are reporting this because they've managed not to be part of the thing that he's angry about, even though I'd say they were all doing the same stuff. Cian O'Neill insists the comments he made prior to yesterday's defeat to Dublin were misconstrued after Clare's Leinster quarter-final win over Longford. O'Neill said his side are going to win against the Dubs, but he explained it was we were going up there to win, not we're going to win, which is fair enough. And then Jarly O'Rourke for Orchard. So Orla Bannon has this story on the back page of the Irish Sun, which is really worrying, but we just need to check into some of the details of it. Armagh midfielder Jarly O'Byrne left Clonus in an ambulance after yesterday's Ulster semi-final replay defeat by Cavan. The 20-year-old is believed to have been still suffering the effects of a concussion injury picked up in the drawn game last week. GAA rules state players must not return to action for at least 7 days after diagnosis. Yesterday was the 7th day. So, just reading up a bit about this, Armagh insisted in the aftermath of the game last week, according to a piece in the Irish News that ran on the 4th of June, so 6 days ago, last Tuesday, Armagh insisted Jarlath O'Byrne wasn't concussed during the game last week. There was some confusion after the game about the exact nature of the injury that saw him withdrawn from the action during the early stages of extra time. He suffered an accidental blow to the head following a collision with one of his own players. He was replaced by Charlie Vernon, and although initially a blood sub, Armagh decided against bringing him back on. The Armagh assistant boss, Jim McCarry, said Burns was a wee bit fuzzy before later commenting that it wasn't the full concussion, but we thought it best not to put him back in.
Right, okay, so he made a decision at that point that it wasn't a full concussion. Was that based on his evidence? Was it based on medical evidence? That's the thing we need to find out here.
Well, there's no such thing as a mild concussion. You're
exactly.
either concussed or you're not.
It's black and white thing.
Yeah, there's like a thing that your brain is either injured or it isn't. And a wee bit fuzzy after a collision to the head would suggest that they are concussive symptoms, and so that's the type of thing. And they thought at that stage that he was bad enough not to put him back in, but they're saying that he wasn't concussed. So this doesn't look good for Armagh.
No. The fact that he is rushed from the pitch in an ambulance straight after the game is very, very unusual. But like, I'd like to know exactly what the reasoning was for at the time. Is Jarly Oak saying, I'm not feeling well here, I need to get out of here, I need to get to hospital? Or is it somebody on the sideline who's actually spotting further symptoms, further fuzziness or whatever it may be, and saying you actually need to go get yourself checked out? Because if it is the latter, then you'd wonder why that wasn't picked up on during the week. Like, you'd imagine they trained during the week. Obviously, it wouldn't have been too much of a strenuous thing, given the fact that there was only a 7-day turnaround between games. And clearly, like, not in this situation, but overall, like, I do wonder the idea of having the exact parameter of saying, right, you have to serve 7 days before you get back. I wonder, is that being seen as a target by people rather than a guideline? Because that shouldn't be a target. It shouldn't be like, right, you serve your 7 days, you must be okay, get back out there. Everybody's brain operates differently. Everybody's got different rates of recovery. And it's an interesting case study to see what's actually gone on here. As I say, I'm not saying for 1 second that Armagh specifically saw that as a target, but I do wonder if other teams look at the 7 days and say, listen, once you hit your 7 days, you're going to be fine again, which clearly just isn't good medical procedure.
No, and you know, the fact that it has happened again and that he's gone to hospital as a result of it is something that Armagh are going to have to explain. And you would hope that everybody gets involved in this conversation, up to and including the GPA, going, what happened here? What are the... Because look, people make mistakes in the heat of championship. Bad decisions can sometimes get made. And I'm not saying that this is necessarily a bad decision. Maybe he didn't appear to be concussed, even though they took him off because of a knock to the head and he appeared fuzzy, which would, you know, suggest that it's all the hallmarks of a concussion. Somehow that becomes, no, he's not concussed later on in the week, to he's then playing and then suffers an injury for which he's rushed to hospital in the aftermath of the game. So, you know, you'd hope that it's a teaching moment, but like, these teaching moments were supposed to have happened last year, and the year before, and the year before, and the year before. So somehow, somewhere along the way, the message isn't getting through. And I'd say the Burns family are a little bit concerned about this too, because, you know, I'm reading a story here from 2016 where he was concussed in a school game, but at that stage the referee took him off. So, you know, especially people with a history of concussion, if it's re-emerging, you kind of would always be anxious about that, because a concussion is a brain injury. Like, let's not beat around the bush. A concussion is a brain injury, and if you suffer a concussion, you need to be very careful about your return to play and about managing that injury if it happens to you again in the future. So there's a duty of care here that everybody has to be careful about, and that, again, you hope that the players are getting the representation that they need, and that this conversation happens at a very wide level. So no doubt Armagh had the best of intentions.
And we have put in a request just for comment on it from Armagh, just to clarify exactly what happened, the order of events here, and what symptoms he was suffering before he got into that ambulance yesterday. So hopefully we'll get some response to that. The Times this morning goes with the hurling as their main picture. Limerick crushed the neighbours' hopes. Their main story on the back page, though, is United fail in their bid for Wan-Bissaka. So Manchester United have failed in a £40 million bid for Aaron Wan-Bissaka, the Crystal Palace right back. They value him at £65 million. So Manchester United clearly, as we could see from the Daniel James signing recently for £18 million, are trying to restructure things, pressing the reset button maybe a tad too strong, but are certainly not prepared to splash the cash as heavily as they used to. So will they splash out on 65 million quid for a 21-year-old right back? It would seem like the Manchester United of old. That being said, this does seem like the next excellent, at the very least, right back in English football. And Manchester City supposedly interested as well. Chelsea also interested. So there's going to be a bit of a battle for Wan-Bissaka over the next couple of weeks, you'd imagine.
Here we go. Front of the Irish Daily Mail. Now Guinness sees red over Paddy Jackson. So Guinness are one of the main sponsors of London Irish. This is an exclusive by Ali Bracken. Guinness has warned it has serious concerns over London Irish signing controversial former Ireland rugby star Paddy Jackson. The drinks giant's parent company, Diageo, has told the Irish Daily Mail it will meet the club this week to discuss the decision, which is not consistent with our values. Guinness have sponsored London Irish for almost 30 years, and the move will renew focus on the decisions of the club led by former Ireland coach Declan Kidney to hire the controversial out half.
The Racing Post this morning goes with Hill Prime's Ascot big shots as he targets Dream Star. That's regarding Charlie Hills, and he said tactics will be different in the King's Stand Stakes this year. The back page then is ready to rock. Gibraltar could crumble later on as Ireland get into gear. It's a 7:45 kick-off tonight at the Aviva.
It'll be 3-0 win, won't it? The back page of the Daily Mail is sly and devious coverage angers O'Neill. So Cian O'Neill thought that the coverage of his post-match comments after the Longford game were sly and devious, in particular talking about the Irish Indo and the Irish Times. And don't mess up, nothing but a win will do for Ireland. The hurdled 100 not out. Gavin Hale, Centurion Cluxton. Rory races to victory as Lowry is second. Scrappy win suits me fine, says Mick. Yeah, Shane Lowry had a great week, like completely overshadowed, but he had an absolutely great week. And it's like, oh, he's sort of 61 in the final round. Come on, thanks a million, Rory. We had a picture from the inner city. This is, a lot of Dubs will have seen this. You could probably, I meant to clip it and zoom it in a little bit. What exactly does it say?
I cannot read that from here.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's 5 in a row, let's go. Is that what it is?
5 in a row, let's go.
Here we go, 5 in a row.
Okay.
Up the Dubs. It's on the side of a pub. It's on the side of
the Wellington
House.
Well, like, they may as well do it.
May they? May they well?
I've got
Jim Gavin's driving into work on.
I've got one big issue with this. Like, they're going to have to replace that next year for 6, the year after for 7, the year after for 8, the year after for 9. So they really aren't saving themselves any money there. They should just go with 9. Just put, here we go, 9 in a row and just be done with it.
They're the first ones out. I mean, I'm surprised that multiple bookmakers haven't already paid out in the 5 in a row, just as that publicity stunt, given that it's, it's June now, be no harm.
Yeah, exactly. You'd actually save money as well. People will probably lump on with huge amounts of money over the next couple of weeks because the inevitability of Dublin winning 5 in a row is just becoming more and more apparent.
It wasn't a good weekend for the various teams that we had assumed. Number 2 in your power rankings, I believe Tyrone were before throw-in, were they?
Yeah, because they'd shown, the second best form so far this year when it comes to...
For once, I'm not having a dig at your power rankings. It's just that you were...
Like I said at the start of the year that Donegal are the best team in Ulster. Like, my opinion was that Donegal are a better team than Tyrone, but the power rankings isn't about opinion. It's not about me. Like, it isn't about me, it's about what the reality is. So
Okay.
we'll update them tomorrow and we can get stuck into it.
Okay, very
But
quickly.
I know we're going to get to Nathan, so I'll wait for a while.
3 more points. The priority for McCarthy in Ireland is the headline on Emmett Malone's piece, the top of Sports Monday, the Irish Times. Magnificent McIlroy wins by 7 as Pebble Beach looms large. And to get through the Mirror, I've got win at all costs. Lots of goals would be great, but what a victory will do for McCarthy. Centurion Cluxton hailed by Gavin. Maybe I did that already, did I? And the Star is 2020 vision. Home comfort's key for Ireland. It's true. Jim backs Dubs fans, even though they're not showing up, because no fans are showing up, because it's the Leinster Championship and it's meaningless now. Look, non-exclusive. Clare had no character and no leadership. It was a total humiliation. Ger loves those columns, though, where it's his job to stick the boot into Clare. In fairness, he's right. Limerick 128, Clare 13 points.
They were gutless, according to Ger Loughnane. At the back page of The Guardian is a picture of Ellen White celebrating her goal against Scotland yesterday in the World Cup. They won 2-1. Phil Neville, not exactly a happy camper afterwards, as we can see on the front page of the Daily Telegraph. Must do better as he channels his inner Phil Brown. Neville gives team public dressing down and demands improvement after victory in World Cup opener. He plans on being there till the very end, he says. I kind of like that, the bullish nature of Phil Neville.
Nathan Murphy had a good weekend. He was in Copenhagen. He's on hold for us. We're going to talk to him in a second, but here are some of the highlights of his trip, including some real talk with Seamus Coleman, pissing off Christian Eriksen, and how Ireland's equaliser sounded on Virgin Media, including an excited Kevin Kilbane. He's hopefully going to join us as well after 9. Have a look at all this.
Seamus, you surprised anyway that it seems so many of their players have been willing to come out and talk down Ireland?
It's something it wouldn't be my thing to do, come out and speak bad of other players, definitely not. That's their way of doing it, that's their tactic. It can be great motivation for the boys.
For a post, it goes! And there is the equaliser! And it's the go-to man, Shane Duffy, that does it again!
Did what Denmark had to say over the last few weeks piss you off a little bit? Did angry Seamus Coleman come out tonight?
Oh, it did. Blood was boiling, but in press conferences you've got to stay, professional. There's no point fueling any fires. You never know with these things. Have they been said like they've been said or what? So, but it definitely did get a mention beforehand and did give you that extra motivation without shadow of a doubt. I think someone said you can change the manager but you can't change the players, and you're thinking, hold on a minute here. I read it and was obviously a bit annoyed by it, and made sure to mention it beforehand that we got good players, and another thing we have is great fighting spirit.
That's that belief that's instilled in the side. Never say die, never give up. It hasn't been a vintage performance, but get your set pieces right. It's a brilliant delivery from Alan Judge. What a ball that is.
Christian, was a draw a fair result?
No, I think it was should have been a win for us. We had the chances to do it, but we weren't sharp enough. Yeah, it's always different, but it's nothing against Ireland how they play or not. It's just really how they approach the game.
It's obviously a busy end to a very hectic season. Are you still in touch with the club? Is the transfer situation ongoing all the time?
I said about that.
Journalism with capital J. Nathan, how are you?
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm very well.
You're pretty happy about life. That was great. Seamus Coleman's great, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he likes to play with a bit of a chip on his shoulder at the moment. You think back to that goal he scored for Everton against Brighton earlier in the season, and he gave it to the Everton supporters because he'd been getting a bit of stick at the time. I think the Danes obviously did say some negative things, but Ireland were incredibly keen to latch onto it, just to say, you know what, everyone's telling us we're useless. Let's go and prove a point here. And listen, they probably did prove the point. But yeah, he's definitely grown into that captain's role, into that real leadership role of deciding what the tone around the game is. As he said himself, I think, earlier in that interview, he doesn't like to give a huge amount away in a press conference generally. But he seems to pick his moments. He seems to know how to handle the media a little bit better. And when he wants to get his point of view across, he knows when to do it.
Yeah, he's got to tell now, though, because the bit that we clipped, obviously, he's putting his hand to his mouth, almost like, shh, 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 don't say the truth, don't say the truth. Yes, it wouldn't be what I would do. Those pricks. He's like how do we play, though? What's the actual honest assessment of how we played?
I think it was exactly what everybody expected and what everybody wanted, which was not much different in possession of the ball, but just a whole lot more energy. We didn't sit back for 90 minutes and gift them possession. Generally, we picked our moments to press, we got at them, we dispossessed them at times in midfield. And I think as an away performance, we deserved a point. You could see why Denmark would feel that they felt they should have had a victory with the amount of chances they created. But I think if you go away from home and you have the opportunities that James McLean had, that Shane Duffy had in the first half, against a decent team like Denmark, I think you deserve your point. We're always going to have a problem with this midfield at the moment, that there aren't too many ball players in there. There aren't people that we win back possession, that are going to hold on to it for a long time and dominate. And it doesn't seem as though that is what Mick McCarthy is particularly looking for. I think when Stephen Kenny comes in, he's going to force them to do it, and it's going to be drilled and drilled and drilled. But I think what Mick McCarthy in this short spell he wants is a team that go out with a bit of fight, that make life bloody uncomfortable for the opposition. And that's what he got. Like, that's what he said ahead of the game. He talked about being aggressive. Like, that was an aggressive performance. There was 4 or 5 tackles in the first 10 minutes that did unsettle Denmark. Lasse Schöne, I thought, was pretty quiet. James McLean was at him quite a lot. Enda Stevens had an early challenge on Yusuf Poulsen that sort of laid down a bit of a marker as well. So, listen, they haven't set the world alight. It hasn't been a transformational 3 or 4 months, but it's been a massive improvement from the last trip to Denmark in November. There's something you can get behind, and like, that's all Mick McCarthy can hope for. This is an 8-10 game reign that you keep momentum going, you just keep building and building, and you don't have some sort of horror setback that you can't recover from.
Yeah, so Alan Judge came on and was very unfortunate, does well, but actually ends up breaking his arm at the very last second in the game. He's had horrific luck with injury. You kind of hope that this is one of those injuries that he might be able to play on sooner rather than later, but we'll wait and see. Scott Hogan, Hogan comes on for Hurling, and it's not Matt Doherty coming on for McGoldrick. It's Matt Doherty on the bench for the entire game. Is this just his future now?
It was surprising, the substitutes. I did actually think he took too long with the substitutes in general. Ireland ran out of energy after 70 minutes, and just shortly after that, Denmark got the goal. Listen, I'm not going to change my mind. Matt Doherty should be playing in this Ireland team. There is no way that he would have offered less on the right than Robbie Brady did. And that's not slating Robbie Brady. Robbie Brady hasn't played any football. He started 1 league game for Burnley since December. Matt Doherty, I would say, linked up better with Seamus Coleman against Gibraltar than Robbie Brady did on Friday night. Like, they've had 2.5 weeks. Part of me was thinking on Friday that maybe that they are going to spring the rabbit from the hat, and they've been working solidly on this in training, despite what Matt Doherty had been saying as well, that in training he's a right back and effectively a replacement for Seamus Coleman. That with 2.5 weeks, 2 smart players like Seamus Coleman and Matt Doherty, you could have put enough work in that if the one issue against Gibraltar seemed to be sometimes they almost ran into each other. Once or twice, the right-hand side was still our main threat in that game against Gibraltar. And how that is the only thing we take from that match is that Seamus Coleman and Matt Doherty, probably our 2 best players, can't work together down the right-hand side. Just doesn't make any sense. And whether or not he gets a chance tonight, like, if he gets a chance tonight and it goes well, does that mean you stick with it? Like, do you read that much into a home performance against Gibraltar? Not that I do think he'll start. I think more than likely, Callum O'Dowd, Alan Judge would have been the one if he hadn't got that injury. Callum O'Dowd is likely to replace Robbie Brady this evening. But if I'm Matt Doherty, I'm getting a little bit peeved at this.
Yeah, and there's no sign if they haven't done the work over the last 2.5 weeks, they're not going to do it at any point over the course of this campaign. A quick word about Rory McIlroy last night. 61 on just narrowly misses out on 59. It was definitely in the mix with about 4 or 5 holes left to go last night. The streak of birdies. When he scores like this, he is the best player in the world, but it's so few and far between at the moment, and yet we know that when he scores like this, he tends to do it for a couple of weeks. So not bad timing, but just maybe a little weaker, 1 week early.
Possibly. Now, nobody's ever won the week before the US Open and gone on to win the US Open, so he'll need to turn history upside down if he's to do that. I think this is the 7th time McIlroy has won a tournament by more than 7 shots. So when he's hot, he's hotter than anybody else. The 59 was on right till the final hole. That eagle on 17, the approach shot on 17 was out of this world, the 7-iron. But then he hit a horrible approach shot with a wedge on 18 into the bunker and ends up dropping a shot. So the 59 was something he will probably be a bit annoyed about that he didn't get. Pebble Beach for a US Open is a whole new ball game. With the exception of Tiger in 2000, when he got to 12 under par, generally scoring is incredibly tough. Graham McDowell won on level par. There's been a couple of 6-unders in there, or 3 under, but it's generally a tournament and a golf course for a US Open where 1 or 2 under would probably win this week. You look at all of McIlroy's wins. He's 16 of them now on the PGA Tour. His victories on the European Tour, 12 under is his lowest winning score. He's always got into double figures when he wins a tournament. So when the scoring is good, he can take advantage when he's on form. It's whether he can grind it out. And he's missed the last 3 cuts at the US Open. He's described his form there as pathetic. Like, strangely for Rory, if he goes to Pebble this week and he doesn't deliver, you look at him and wonder now, well, is there a mental issue around the majors that he can go and he can play so well? I think it'd be reading probably too much into it because they're totally different events and they're totally different golf course setups. But that's what he has to deal with that nobody else really has to deal with. But his golf last night was just out of this world.
What's going to happen tonight? A routine 3-0 win for Ireland?
Yeah, I think we might get 4 or 5. I think there's good buzz around the place. I hope they do. I hope David McGoldrick gets a couple of goals. None of our strikers in the squad have ever scored an international goal. That needs to change. They need to show a bit of desire. Like this is where Robbie Keane should hopefully come into his own. I think Robbie got 5
As in, come
between
on.
the 2 games against Gibraltar. He would absolutely love it, and I bet you he would score a goal as well. But people criticise Robbie for scoring lots of goals against the Minnows, but he had this burning desire inside him to go and get those goals. I think he often looks at those strikers and wonders, do they have that burning desire as well? So I hope Dave McGoldrick comes on and plays and gets a goal. I don't think there'll be many changes. Like James McLean, if this was a bigger qualifier, I think would be very lucky to keep his place after his performance on Friday night. But wouldn't be surprised if maybe Callum Robinson comes in for McLean, O'Dowda in for Brady. And do you need Glenn Whelan in this game? Perhaps Josh Cullen in the middle of midfield, or Conor Howard drops a little bit deeper and plays in that holding role. Don't really think you need Glenn Whelan at the end of a long season at home against Gibraltar, just keeping things ticking over.
I see you're in your training gear there, Nathan.
What's that you say? What are the chances? Just about to go for my run. Actually, I need 2 bits of advice, Jer, because we're into the final countdown now. Keep getting blisters on my feet.
Oh.
So what's the answer to that?
Vaseline, apparently. You're going to rub Vaseline at your feet.
No blisters on my feet, Jer.
Hey. Christ almighty. This is a family show. It's 2 minutes past 8 in the morning, Nathan.
And also, when do you do your final bit of training? So our race is Saturday morning.
Last week, I'd say. Owen tapered down last week.
Can I keep pushing it till Thursday?
You can definitely keep pushing. You've done the 5k distance once at least?
Oh.
No, you haven't.
No, I've done about 4 and a bit K running and walk the rest.
All right.
I'm presuming adrenaline will kick in on Saturday and that'll get me over the line.
Exactly. That's exactly what's going to happen as you get chased down by Phil Egan at the very end. Right, we'll talk a bit more about that a little bit later on. Thanks very much. Enjoy the game tonight.
Cheers, lads.
That's Nathan with us there. Michael Verney's coming up next. First, though, we've got a quick break and some of Tommy Walsh's post-match thoughts from Nolan Park, where he says TJ Reid was as good as he ever has been.
Join Bruce Betting now for a risk-free first bet up to €100. That's right. New Irish accounts can enjoy a risk-free first bet up to €100. So if your first bet loses, we'll refund your stake with a free bet. Now that's giving you more. Bruce Betting. In store, online, and now on your phone. T's and C's apply. Please gamble responsibly. See Dunlewy.net.
That game was a brilliant game, and I suppose that's probably the main talking point. The scores, like last year, Kilkenny I think scored 211 or something like that, and today they went out and scored 222. So huge positives for us coming out of this game. For Galway, we've been waiting for Galway to spark into life all summer. Now look at the talking points and the podcasts and I suppose the local radio stations up in Galway this week will be taking on a whole new life, because they were outstanding today, and so many great performances. Conor Whelan was sharp all day. Jason Flynn, if you were to go back and look at his assists for many scores and frees and that, like Brian Concannon, who got a brilliant goal in the second half, like that came from Flynn. He had a chance, tapped the ball over the bar, but out of the side of his eye he saw underneath the new stand, he saw Concannon all on his own, buried it, beautiful pass over with the stick, and Concannon knew what to do when he got the ball, and it was brilliant from that point of view. Cotton Mannion with 6 points on the Kilkenny side. Dahi Burke as well, I have to give a mention to Dahi, because it was kind of his second game back in now after a bit of a layoff through injury, and I thought he was immense there in that second half. Joseph Cooney the same, coming back from Australia, barely back. I thought in the second half he was catching balls, and the ability of the Galway guys to catch balls. On the opposite end, I thought TJ Reid, I've seen TJ giving performances, but that was the greatest performance I've seen him given.
Yeah, that's high praise. Not good enough for man of the match from the RTE lads. Michael, how are you?
Good, yeah, Jerry, yeah.
We should talk.
Can I just coin now? You boys are talking about a 5K. What have you been doing for the last 20 years? Genuinely.
Sitting on our holes. What do you think, Michael? Some of us are not born with the athletic genes, you know. Anyway, that's Nathan complaining about the 5K. We're complaining about a 20K cycle. So
20K cycle is tame enough now too, in fairness.
it's great.
It is, yeah. We shouldn't be complaining at all.
Yeah.
Owen doesn't think he's going to make it though.
I think he'll be okay.
I'm not complaining about it.
I'm not sure. You haven't seen him on a bike.
I'm just sitting back and just gonna enjoy whatever happens. To be honest with you, just here for a bit of experience.
We should talk about TJ Reid because it wasn't quite a one-man performance, but it wasn't far off it either. Like, are Kilkenny actually a little bit back, or are they further away than we thought? Because Galway chose not to try and go man-to-man against TJ, and you wonder if a better team later in the championship will do that, and that'll be the end of Kilkenny one way or another.
Yeah, they're not too far away. Over the last couple of years, particularly 16, 17, 18, he's usually been man-marked. And even Limerick man-marked him in Nolan Park 2 years ago. And if he's curtailed somewhat, they can be in a bit of trouble. But it's so hard to curtail him. You know what I mean? And there is a bit more around him now than there was. And even Richie Hogan came on yesterday and wasn't probably on point. If he was on point, they could have won the game. Do you know? But Bill Sheehan and Billy Ryan and a couple of other lads are contributing around him. There's more dangers around him probably than there was. Wally Walsh wasn't there yesterday either. Another massive danger. So it's hard to because if you man-mark him, you're going kind of 5-on-5 with the other 5. And there's more dangers there within that 5 than I think there was.
Okay, so was that a quantum leap forward then from where Kilkenny had been? Are they suddenly feeling a good bit confident about themselves? So the way this works out for them is that they end up not being more than likely in a Leinster final. Is that more than likely what's going to happen at this stage?
If they beat Wexford,
they're straight through to the final.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
You know, so and that's a huge game. I think Kilkenny probably go there. They'll feel aggrieved yesterday, to be honest. Like the 4 minutes of injury time was laughable, really. It was 4 minutes and 10. I think it was 2 minutes from when TJ got a free and then put the free over, which is just bananas, like really, like. And it's easy for the referee to say, "Oh, I said 4, I played 4," but the ball was in play about 90 seconds. So they'll feel aggrieved, but confident going in next weekend. They're going to have to be. I saw Wexford on Saturday night. They haven't blown me away or anything yet, and even struggled in the first half against Carlow the other night. So there's not going to be much in it, but I still would fancy Kilkenny and even to get through to a Leinster final.
So the other permutation is Galway are already through, is that right? Or do Galway still need to beat Dublin?
They need to get a result against Dublin to make sure of it, but more than likely they are through, yeah. Just back to TJ again for a second.
Yeah.
I actually marked TJ when he made his debut. Richie Hogan made his debut in 2008, so I was on him for his debut and ran around after him for 55 minutes, which was tough. And then this fresh 6'2" absolute animal came on to me and just ran everywhere, and I think he hit a point, but that's 11 years ago now. And it's just he's an animal in every aspect, skills wise, physically. There's nothing he doesn't have.
Yeah.
And something I saw yesterday, which I kind of seen it a few times, but he's so good at planting his feet.
That was it.
Yeah, he's just so good at planting his feet. You think he's going to turn left, right, plants his feet and gets a free shot at goal. He's an unbelievable.
He caught a puck out yesterday with 2 Galway lads around him. He runs towards his own goal, stops, and kind of reverses, and the 2 guys keep going.
Yeah.
It's like a comedy act.
Yeah.
And just pivots and turns, and it's like, it is a completely free shot at that point.
Yeah.
It's one of the best things I've ever seen in any sport.
Yeah.
Like, it was that good. It was so individual, and there was no one else around him, and you kind of, because everybody's going the same direction, and he completely fooled them just by his movement. It's like...
people talk about like speed work and acceleration. His ability to decelerate unbelievably quickly. He just goes from like 10 to 0 almost in one go, and the momentum kind of brings players past him.
Yeah.
He's actually very unlucky with the last ball that he got. He slipped, and if he hadn't slipped, the ball probably would have been down the far end of the field, and they could have probably worked another score.
Yeah, because he was actually back chasing, and I think did he win the ball back? Or certainly he was happy enough to go out and fight for it anyway.
And that's the thing about him as well. He's all the talent, physically brilliant, but he's probably one of the best foragers we've seen in the game. Like, he works phenomenally hard all over the field.
You would hope for his sake that Kilkenny can get back to a level that they've been at for the last couple of years, because, you know, that current Tipperary team versus this current Kilkenny team, It'll be interesting to see if they meet later on in the championship what happens. You would make Tip significant favourites for that at the moment.
You would, to be fair.
Favourites.
Looking at the Kilkenny bench though yesterday was very, very encouraging, because it's been the opposite of the last couple of years. You had Joey Holden, who was probably a bit jittery coming back from a layoff. You had Killian Buckley, you had John Donnelly, you had Richie Hogan. You had experienced faces. That's not been the case in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So they're going to get better to me the longer it goes on.
Okay, so what about Galway? Where did that come from?
Well, it's always been there. It's always been there. But like Carl Mannion, we all know how talented he is. He comes into the Tony Kelly mode in the sense that he just roves around picking up loose ball. He has to be man marked, because if he gets a ball anywhere 100 yards in, he can score. But there was other men stood up as well. Conor Wheelan off limited supply was brilliant. Brian Concannon, who hadn't done much realistically in the last 2 years, delivered a big performance yesterday as well. And like I was kind of getting ready to say, geez, it's mad putting Adrian Tootie wing forward, but he delivered 2 points as well. And they were hanging on at the end. They were hanging on.
Didn't score for the last 10 minutes?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Even after the sending off, there was sending off as well, which we'd have to talk about as well, which I think Hurling has gone mad with how easily yellow cards are dished out as well. But Galway were hanging on, and the difference between winning and a draw is huge for them. You could see the relief etched all over their faces after.
It's interesting looking at Galway and how they live up to expectations since winning the All-Ireland, because you look at that Leinster final last year. Before that, I thought they were a far better team to Kilkenny. Kilkenny get a replay out of it. Like, you look at the All-Ireland final last year, everybody knows what happened there. You look at the Wexford game, granted Wexford's inaccuracy probably ended up in the draw in the end. If Wexford had been a bit more accurate in the first half, they might have won that game. So Galway, despite the fact that they were so much better in the first half, ended up getting out of there with a draw. Then yesterday they only win by a point. Like, I know they're back, and it seemed like they were back yesterday, and they still have Joe Canning to come back. I do wonder, with that tail off at the end of the game yesterday, is there a question mark around Galway still in terms of how they're able to see these things through?
Massive question mark. If you look, they went well up against Clare in the All-Ireland semi-final last year. Actually, well up against Kilkenny in the Leinster final replay. That turned into a dogfight. Well up against Clare in the drawn game. Draw. Well up against Clare in the replay, it turned into an absolute, like, a titanic clash that had no need to be. Yesterday was the same as well. It's kind of fits and starts. When they're good, they're very good. When they're bad, they just don't seem to be putting scores on the board. Yeah, so like, there definitely is still worries about them, without a doubt. Yeah, and like, Joe coming back is one thing. How fit he's going to be when he comes back is another thing, you know. So there's definitely still question marks about them. They were just breathing a sigh of relief. You could see them after yesterday. It was just sheer relief, you know.
What's going to happen next weekend then? What do you think is going to happen? Kilkenny beat Wexford in a narrow game. Galway beat Dublin. That's in Parnell Park.
Yeah. That's very simplistic, but I would imagine so. Yeah. Kilkenny are playing well, like, and you have to admire the fact that, like, they shouldn't have been in that game in injury time. They really shouldn't have been. Through Galway's maybe deficiencies, but combine that with Kilkenny, they just don't stop. They never stop. They go down to Wexford Park next week. I'd say with a fair degree of confidence. They've struggled with the sweeper before, and they've struggled down there before. It'd be interesting to see Wexford. I'm not too sure. They'll probably put Matt Hanlon on TJ Reid and try and tie him up. But that's easier said than done. I think they'll just get through by a score or two down there. Galway the same as well. Galway coming into Parnell on after defeat or a deflating draw would have been a different story now.
Yeah.
You'd imagine they'd just have enough. There was talks of Joe being rushed back for next weekend. Probably won't be now. I'd say they look at the bigger picture, because there wouldn't have been a bigger picture if they hadn't won yesterday.
No, so they don't need Canning back. He could be a sub and he could come on for a little bit at the end just to kind of see what that fitness levels are like and see what work he needs to do. But so that would mean that Wexford would go through. No, so who goes through?
Yeah, if Galway beat Dublin are gone.
Yeah, so Dublin need to win.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So Wexford should probably sneak through, yeah. Even saying that, there's a possibility that they could we'll say, even draw, I think, or they could lose one game in Leinster and be gone completely.
Yeah.
If Dublin beat Galway. So yeah, it's the calculators will definitely be out. Wexford did themselves no harm score difference wise now the other night now, in fairness, putting 15 up, yeah.
Because they weren't great in the first half, were they?
No, they were poor.
Or were Carlo good in the first half? Is that a more accurate reflection?
No, Wexford were 1-7-3 up after the first quarter and just kind of switched off, stopped working. They only scored 3 points for the remainder of the half. And just interestingly, I actually wrote in it today, I was kind of hanging around for interviews after, and Davey had done his interviews and was actually just waiting for Colin Bonner. And it was about half an hour after the match, and Davy was going to town. You could just hear him. I suppose it was a sense that we got this result, and it's just like everything is on next week now. And like if the walls could talk. I couldn't hear exactly what I was saying, but you could hear that.
Just the noise.
Yeah. So you're just getting them ready for next weekend. Sure, their eggs are in that big basket next weekend.
What's the story with Clare? Because pre-championship, people thought Clare were going to be realistic contenders. That. They were in the long grass, according to some pundits, and they've been tipping away, and they got Tony Kelly in a right frame of mind / position. They knew exactly what they wanted to do, and they have just been fairly abysmal.
They look like a team that have been totally overcoached, and they just seem to be overanalyzing everything. There's no simplicity, or nothing is off the cuff with them. Everything seems to be really regimented. Even like the puck outs, it just looks like there's too much thought going into it in a way. They have Peter Duggan, who's brilliant under high ball. They have the potential to bring in John Conlon out, and everything was short, and it just looked like a chaos everywhere really. And the Tony Kelly thing is, when he's getting on the ball, it's great, but like he was on the ball 6-7 times yesterday and looked kind of short of confidence anytime he was on the ball as well. But saying that, they could have had 3 early goals and the game could have been a little bit different. But Peter Duggan was the only scorer, I think, up until 43rd or 44th minute yesterday. That's in an attack with Shane O'Donnell, Tony Kelly, John Conlon, Aaron Shanter as well. Like they're in big trouble.
Yesterday's encounter could have been a repeat of last year's All-Ireland final. Like, really, Clare could feel aggrieved to not make it to the All-Ireland last year. So how did they go from that place to being overcoached this year with the same management?
Well, to be fair, last year, I think it was Brendan Bugler actually did a column, I think it was with AIB or something last year, and he kind of said, he got a bit of stick over it actually, where he said he just couldn't handle, as a married man with kids, like these video sessions for like 2 hours after training, and that from talking to people, that just seems to be a paralysis by analysis a bit much. Like, you could not say that Clare are playing off the cuff, and everything is structured. It's kind of like there's plays. Everything is, there's no, how should we say, there's no kind of creativity or anything to what they're doing. Everything is so regimented. I wouldn't say it's as simplistic as saying it's happened in the space of a year.
Sure.
Galway kind of turned off against them twice last year. Do you know what I mean? That's the way I would look at it a bit more. So, like, while they played very, very well last year, they played the sweeper against Galway at different stages last year. And I've just been surprised to see it again from the start. It's a good tactic to implement during a game if you're in trouble, but they've been implementing it from the start in games, and like really good teams now, the Limericks, the Tips, can play around that now. I don't think it's an effective tactic to start with and hope to win a big game with.
So what happens next for Clare?
Try and pull a big result out against Cork, but it's very unlikely.
It's almost impossible to see that happening. So, like,
it is in Ennis now as well, though, which is I know they were. It should. That doesn't seem to be any advantage this year. It's the complete opposite narrative to last year.
Yeah, the small sample size from last year was just a small sample size.
You would hope that they get a reaction at home based on what we've seen with Waterford. It's probably not a given.
Yeah.
Like, and just on that as well, like with Waterford as well. Waterford and Clare beat Waterford by a point, and everyone's like, yeah, Clare, it's a good result, they just held on or whatever. But like in horse racing terms, the form has worked out absolutely terribly.
Yeah, it turned out that was a game of intermediate hurling as opposed to senior hurling, really. And I don't know what the hell has happened to Waterford that they've gone back so badly as well. Like, are both management teams in the hot seat this winter? Is that likely to be something that we see changed, or are Clare going to double down and say, look, you guys have come through that underage setup, you were so spectacularly successful, we understand that this is going to be a period of evolution, and let's see what happens next year?
Well, on Clare, you'd have to wait till next weekend to see, but there was some doubt about whether they'd come back this year. So it's one thing doubling down on being in a positive position, and you're thinking, yeah, we're close. Like last year, we're close, we're not far off. If they're beating 4 or 5 points by Cork at the weekend, like, what are you doubling down on? Do you know what I mean? Like,
but you can see Cork giving them a hiding as well, can't you? Like,
I wouldn't say a hiding, but I could see Cork winning by 5 or 6, all right, yeah. So then you're doubling down on a bad situation, really, and a terrible year. If you look at, they were annihilated by Waterford in the league quarter-final, annihilated by Tip, annihilated by Limerick, and if Cork beat them as well, I wouldn't say there's any place for them to go management-wise, really. Like, how do you go committing to a 4th year then? In my opinion, Waterford is different. Pádraig Fanning's situation, there's some similarities with Derek McGrath's first year, but there was probably a bit more optimism in Derek McGrath's first year than Pádraig Fanning's. And people are talking about like getting rid of some bodies and maybe a bit of a clear out in Waterford. I'm not sure there's many to clear out, and what you're bringing in is as good as what you're clearing out.
Yeah, okay. All right. In terms of where we stand now, it looks like there's a clear hierarchy of Tipperary better than everybody else, and everybody else or Tipperary and Limerick rather better than everybody else, and everybody else trying to make it up to them.
Yeah, kind of at the moment, to be honest. It's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be interesting kind of dynamic with Tip and Limerick. There's a fair chance they could play again in the Munster final,
and again the Ireland final,
and again possibly, yeah. So I don't think Limerick will be. I don't think either of them will be holding back. To be honest with you, there's a lot to be said for when you're going well to keep going well. Whereas if you kind of take your foot off or anything like that, then you're chasing form again. If you're going well, I don't buy into the argument that you can be going too well at all.
If you're Tip, are you in any way worried about the fact that you've got to beat a team 3 times over the course of the year, and that your panel is so big that you might want to because they know exactly what's going on, they're definitely going to be playing in the Munster final. Do they change the team significantly? Rest a few players if anybody's got a little bit of a niggle or a knock?
I'd say they bring in 1 or 2 bodies, but I don't think there'll be anything too major, to be honest with you. They're going well and will want to stay going well. They're already in the Munster final, but I don't think Liam Sheedy be worried about, that's all ponderables or possibilities that they could have to beat them. This is the one game in front of them. If they do beat them, they won't be playing them again in the Munster final. So
maybe that's the value, is it?
Yeah, but Limerick finished in 3rd would be, I think John Kiley would be happy enough with that too.
Yeah.
Based on last year, and they'll probably get a soft kind of preliminary quarter final and then come into the quarter final as well. So, but I don't think Limerick will be holding back either.
No, it feels like Limerick are more likely to want this game just that little bit more, given that they kind of. Does that not make the most sense?
Yeah,
in a weird way?
Just because they got a kick in the arse the first weekend, obviously, and want to keep things going again. Just on Limerick as well, that's been beaten in the first game after, an unbelievable league where they sailed through. Is kind of an ideal scenario for them. The All-Ireland champions, while they do have a point to prove, they have a real point to prove now. Everyone is saying, okay, Limerick are beaten now, will they be able to react? That just seems like a different type of group. That just seems like a group that love a challenge, love the chance of creating history, and they'll want to win a Munster, and I think they'll really want to get to a Munster final now as well. So for them to get beaten in the first game was probably a perfect scenario for them.
Yeah, and they came out of their shell even more when the season was essentially on the line yesterday. It actually struck me listening to John Kiley afterwards. You probably picked up on it plenty of times before, just how he speaks so like Jim Gavin in terms of it's all about the team, we're focused on next week. Granted, he's a bit more bullish than Jim Gavin usually is afterwards yesterday.
A bit more eloquent about it as well.
Yeah, he was clearly delighted with it. But I do wonder if there's also elements of his values in terms of humility, in terms of squad mentality that comes through in this team that allows them to step up when it really matters, like it did yesterday.
Yeah, no, I think so, yeah. Anytime I've talked to John, he's a thoroughly impressive character. And the way he talks to the lads is kind of the way the lads would talk to us when they're post-match interviews or any kind of promotion things that they're doing. They just seem to. There's a couple of little things that, little kind of bullet points almost that he passes on to them. Say Limerick won their first league game this year in the Gaelic grounds, and Dermot Burns was outstanding. His man of the match after was this is our first Division 1 league game in the Gaelic grounds in about 10 years. We wanted to win this. There's a goal every time. There's something to work towards. It's never another game. And I think John has kind of passed that mentality on to them. They're a really impressive side, and Dan Morrissey was dropped yesterday. So their half back line is unbelievably impressive. And then they have him to come in as well. Nobody can rest on their laurels anywhere in the field. They just have too many good players ready to come in all over the pitch. So they're in a really good situation, whether they get to a Munster final or where they come through in 3rd. I think they're going to be hard beaten. Everyone talks about how hard it is to defend the title. They will go close. I don't think they'll win it, but they will go very, very close.
One last thing, black card in hurling, do you think it's a good idea?
No, I don't think it is. I think that's an overreaction on one game. I was actually only thinking about it Saturday night because I did a piece about 9 months ago after Schlockneil were beaten by Napirshig in an All-Ireland Club semi-final in Parnell Park in February 2018, and there was a couple of pullbacks maybe when lads were going through on goal, and Carol McCaig said after that a black card should be brought in, and there's literally been no talk about it since. That's 16 months ago, and then we're basing it all on one game. I think it's bizarre kind of talk. Yeah, I do think that yellow cards are dished out far too early, too easily in hurling. Like say Joe Aylward's second yellow card yesterday, and it drives me bananas because if a corner forward hits me, I'm gonna hit my shoulder or whatever. The simple thing is umpires put the hand up. Referee comes in, 2 boys ratted in there, give them both yellows. I didn't actually do anything. It's like Joe Aylward didn't really do anything yesterday. Like if he'd been tripped and hadn't went back at his man, he'd be almost deemed like cowardly. So like,
did it look like he had a hand around the? I think that was
ever so slightly. And that was ever so slightly.
I agree with you. It was slight, but that's I'd say what that was given for, even though that's not really yellow. That's supposed to be.
It was literally like that.
It was. It was like he realised straight away. It's like, oh, I'm in trouble if I do that, and then
Is it too easy to be somebody in the full back line, seeing somebody come through and pull them down?
In what sense?
As in, it's not really that much of a consequence. As in, it's going to be TJ Reid tapping the ball over the bar. Whereas, if somebody's coming at you one-on-one and you know you're going to be sent off for the remainder of the game, are you less likely to pull that person down? And by extension, you'll get yourself into a situation where the game sees more goal-scoring chances.
Well, see, like Paul Murphy's yesterday. Paul Murphy stopped a certain goal-scoring chance when he pulled down Jason Fenn at the start. He couldn't take down Conor Whelan because he was going to get sent off. So, like, is it too easy to pull a man down? I don't think so. Not at inter-county level. It's actually more difficult to take a man down than you think as well. And there are consequences to it. Paul Murphy, the consequences weren't direct at that time when he could have taken Conor Whelan down, but they were later on in the game when he got a deserved red, in my view, to be fair. He wrapped his 2 hands around him and made no attempt to play the ball. But I think there are consequences to it. Like taking a card or anything like that is really, really dangerous now. If it's late in a game, it's a little different. You're willing to take the consequences. But early in a game, no. It's too big of a kind of an obstacle for your team to overcome if you're down a man, you know.
All right, Michael, good stuff. Thanks for joining us this morning. Right, we're going to get to Gaelic football in a minute, but before we do, I want to tell you about this, because Off the Ball are heading for some winter sun and top-class golf, and we want you to join us. The OTB crew, along with special guests Kevin Kilbane, Kieran Donaghy, Peter Lowry and more, are taking on 2 of the best courses in the planet. That's Yaz Links and the National. The National, of course, where Shane Lowry won in Abu Dhabi earlier on in the year. It's the first ever Off the Ball Open. It's taking place this November, and you need to get on and pay your deposit now if you want to secure a place. 5 nights in a 4-star hotel, a Peter Lowry golf clinic, a gala dinner and a world-famous OTB roadshow this November the 17th to the 23rd in Abu Dhabi. You can sign up now at offtheball.com/open. We're talking football with Brian McGuigan. I want to have a look at this first. This is Declan Bonner talking after Donegal beat Tyrone in the Ulster semi-final, sharing his thoughts on Tiernan McCann's alleged eye gouge on Donegal's Stephen McManaman. Have a look.
It's a game with plenty of talking points, lots of things to talk about, but let's cut to the chase. The 42nd minute, Stephen McManaman on the ground looked like he was gouged by Tiernan McCann. What's your opinion of that incident?
I actually, no, and that's not shielding away from the fact or hiding it from. I actually didn't see it. I've heard it numerous times on all the interviews that I've done now. If that is the case, then that's not acceptable. And Stevie's a tough boy, and he looks all right there, so I'm not too sure. I'll see it later on.
Doesn't matter how tough somebody is, though, you know, there's tackling and there's tackling.
Oh, there is, exactly. So, as I say, I can't really comment. There's Stephen there, going by.
He's after knocking over a pile of...
Good man, Stephen.
Stephen, how's your face? We're just talking about your face. He's running away from me.
Yes, no, listen, you know, if that is the case, then it's not acceptable. But listen, we're concentrating on the victory, hard-fought victory. Room for improvement for an Ulster final, and as I say, we're going to have to get that improvement 5-6 sessions to go there, and we look forward to the challenge.
In the end, it was a relatively straightforward victory for Donegal against Tyrone. Brian McGuigan is with us this morning. Brian, I didn't expect it to be a straightforward victory for either team in this, but Tyrone didn't really manage to lay a glove properly on Donegal.
No, look, it's disappointing from a Tyrone perspective that we went out rather tamely in the Ulster Championship, and I know last year Monaghan beat us, but I think it was maybe a point or two in it, but the performance was good. But I think that's what annoys us the most about Saturday, that we went out so tamely and a lot of our players didn't perform, and maybe a lot of our decisions on the line. And I would be one that would always back Mickey no matter what he does. But I thought some of even his decisions were a bit baffling on Saturday, even before the game. I know my own clubmate Michael Cassidy, who the first 2 games, you know, you talk about young lads taking their chance whenever you get it. And Michael Cassidy got in, took his chance in the 2 games against Derry and Antrim, and then was mysteriously dropped for the game on Saturday. And even when he came on Saturday, he seemed to play well. And I know Mickey likes taking risks, and he thought that Liam Rafferty could come on and do a job on Ryan McHugh, but for a rookie to come in and mark one of the best players in Ulster, it just didn't work out. But I think Mickey will hold his hands up and say that he did get it wrong.
Tyrone have been incredibly impressive when they've gone Route 1 this year, but the thing is, defending against Route 1, it's a fairly simple fix. You just put more men behind the ball, you get more men to crowd out someone like Al McShane. That's exactly what Donegal did in the second quarter of the game. Were you surprised with the lack of reaction from Tyrone tactically to that?
Yeah, well, look, I know Tyrone last year, the way they played, they knew they had to change it up a bit, I think, and you've seen the latter stages of the championship last year that they were kicking the ball more, and with Cathal McShane in there, give them that Route 1 ball in. Now, if you looked at the tactics Donegal used the other day, I think they used 2 players to mark Cathal McShane. See my buddy here. I think they had 2 players marking him, and I even think at times Patton was giving Cathal McShane a bit of hassle in there, so you really had 3 players in there. I think, it'll be a learning experience for Cathal McShane, but the problem with Tyrone now is that they're trying to come up with a new system of play, and it is more attacking. But the problem is it leaves holes in defence, and you've seen, especially in the first half against Donegal the other day, they had a lot of balls through the middle, Donegal balls through the middle, which you don't associate with this Tyrone team. So, it's trying to get that balance right. And the unfortunate thing is that we're talking about trying to go more attacking and not be as defensive. But for Tyrone to probably win that game, they had to revert back to type and play the way they did in, say, 2 years ago or last year when it was more defensive, because you seen they couldn't unlock the Donegal defence. The way Donegal played, Tyrone just couldn't cope with it. They couldn't get any attacking fluidity going in their play, and we just played in the Donegal's hands.
So is that terminal then for this year? If you're going to only play one way during a game and not be able to mix and match the 2 styles, which should be relatively straightforward for a Tyrone team who are expert at the original style of play that they had up until this year, is that terminal if you can't work it out in a game like Donegal? Are you going to be able to find a way to do that in the qualifiers, for example, and then later on in the Super 8s? Or maybe a run in the qualifiers is actually what this team needs to work out. It's a little bit from column A and a little bit from column B.
Yeah, well, look, we could put it down to a bad day at the office, or maybe it's just we're having the players that's gonna challenge for all Ireland's. But I don't know if we have to change our system, because the way we were playing last year didn't get us anywhere. We didn't win nothing. So, and to please the supporters of Tyrone, we'll have to be more ambitious, and we do have a lot of good footballers. The problem now is we have a lot of players up front, scorers who have left the panel. You take Mark Bradley, Ronan O'Neill and Lee Brennan. They're types of players that maybe could walk off the likes of Cathal McShane, and they just weren't there. The other thing is, I think the way we're playing now hasn't suited a couple of our key players who were excellent this past couple of years, and that was Colm Kavanagh and Niall Sludden. Niall Sludden was actually dropped for the game on Sunday, and if you had said that this time last year, you would never have thought it. So you take up front with no Niall Sludden and Peter Hart for most of the first half on Saturday, so they were major losses. And I don't think we'll have to change our style, but I do think it's a reality check for this squad of players, and it'd be interesting to see how they reacted to him this week, because the players have to react the right road. Are they going to start talking behind backs and maybe a couple of the players maybe even pull out? Because I know even the likes of my own clubmate Kyle Coney, who is an outstanding forward, he didn't even get a look on Sunday. In this past few weeks, start games are on in club football, and he hasn't been playing for his club, and now he hasn't been playing for his county. Is he going to start thinking about, will I just go back to my club? So it'll be interesting to see what way the qualifier draw goes this morning and who they get, and see if they can get a bit of momentum built up before the Super 8s. Right,
it feels like it's on a bit of a knife edge then in Tyrone at the moment.
Yeah, well, look, you know yourself, if you get a defeat, the nays, and especially the supporters, will have the nays out for Mickey. But as I said before, look, Mickey loves taking risks, and the decisions he made, he will try and justify them on Saturday. And yes, they didn't work out on Saturday, but in the future, Mickey has to stick by his guns. And there's plenty of times in the past where he's took risks, and if it didn't pay off, history could have been different. But lucky enough, they did. So we know Mickey's still a good manager, but you have to be honest and say that Mickey was tactically beat on the line on Saturday too. And where's Donegal at the minute? This time last year they were cruising through Ulster, but I think the big difference was they lost Paddy McBurdy last year. They now have Stephen Rochford in. It's very easy when a new man comes in to say that he's tactically there and he's making a difference for Donegal. But I think that's unfair on Declan Bonner. So look, I think with Jamie Brennan, Paddy McBurdy, Michael Murphy, and Ryan McHugh up front, I think that they really are a match for anybody, and the young players really are coming of age. You even have to look at Ban Gallagher and Hugh McFadden. I thought they were excellent at the weekend, and even Sean Padden. The way when I know Tyrone weren't there, but there were certain times near the end where you thought maybe he got the 4 points and Tyrone maybe could make a surge. Sean Padden just found his man straight away, so he eased the pressure on them.
One final point. It felt a little bit like Tiernan McCann let the county down at the weekend, because he's such a brilliant footballer, but he just has some stuff in his makeup where he just can't help himself sometimes.
Well, I know you might think this is a bit of bias for me, but what we've seen on the county scene from Tiernan McCann, that is nowhere near what the type of player that Tiernan McCann is. I think he was a bit frustrated the other day. But look, the pictures don't lie. I think we'll be lucky to see any more of Tiernan McCann this year because it's been highlighted in the media. I think that the GAA is going to have to take action because it did look ugly at the time, and there is no defending that. And I'm not going to sit here and defend Tiernan McCann, but the one thing I will say is that it's definitely not letting Tiernan McCann's nature to do what he's doing on the county scene. I don't know what it is, what comes over him, but. When I see him club football, when I know of him personally, it's not him. It's not him. But I do agree that action has to be taken.
Anytime you hear him talking as well, like he's such a clever guy, really articulate, and then sometimes stuff like this happens, and it's very hard to reconcile those two things. So maybe somebody can have a word, and that can come out of his game, because we've seen other players take it out of their game and not lose any of their efficiency as a footballer over the years. So certainly you would hope that.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, Tiernan McCann, he burst on the scene. He did a great couple of years there, but I think on top of that now, he's been playing poorly for Tyrone, and as I said, it probably is a bit of frustration. I don't think Donegal or Declan Bonner would be too worried about it today. Now they don't have to worry about it.
Tyrone obviously gave Dublin not their fill of it, but plenty in Oma last year in the Super 8s. Can Donegal or Tyrone come back to a point where they can credibly? Certainly Donegal will feel that they absolutely could if they get the dubs. Give them a game over 70, 75, 80 minutes, however long it's going to take.
Yeah, well, I think now looking at the game on Saturday, I think Donegal is better equipped than Tyrone to put it up to Dublin, because the thing about the Donegal players is that they're physically there, and probably to match Dublin you have to be physically there, and you have to think there's a lot of good working on Donegal, but I think the thing that let Tyrone down the pass against Dublin was defensively they were able to cope with Dublin to a certain level, but they couldn't do it on the other end of the field. I think now Donegal can do that all the end of the field, and I know Paddy McBurdy's only coming back, but I think the more games he gets and the more games he plays in the Super 8s, this is where the Super 8s might help Donegal. That the more game time he gets, he could be a major influence. And as I said before, they probably were a bit over-reliant on Paddy McBurdy in the past, and they're looking at all his scores from him. But now he has that foil beside him there, and Jamie Brennan. I think that they're going to be a great twin threat, and it means that you don't have to play Michael Murphy as far up the field to get scores. You can play him deeper, and you could see what he done on Saturday. I thought he was immense. I thought he was man of the match on Saturday, and people are saying he's the best player of his generation, but he's definitely starting to prove it now.
Yeah, he's right up there. Brian and family, thanks very much for joining us this morning. Cheers.
Thanks, boys.
Good stuff. That's Brian McGuigan. Always great to have him on the show. One of the footballers of his generation as well.
It's of such vital importance if Donegal want to win the All-Ireland that they win the Ulster final. They have to go through that side of the draw, from the way I'm looking at it, because what they did on Saturday suggests to me that they have the ability to pull a rabbit out of a hat, and the only way Dublin will get beaten this year is if they get completely taken from a direction that they haven't seen before, they haven't kind of come up against, or that they come up against somebody who's able to adjust how they play mid-game in a way that's at the level that Dublin can adjust mid-game. And Donegal's performance on Saturday suggests to me that they were able to do that. The problem is they don't want to have to play Dublin twice. They don't want to get stuck in the same Super 8 group as them and then perhaps come up against them in an All-Ireland final if they have designs of winning the All-Ireland. They need to win the Ulster final. They need to get in to the group with the Munster champions and not the one with the Connacht and Leinster champions. And they need to get Dublin in an All-Ireland semi-final or in an All-Ireland final again and have them on a one-off game. I think in terms of anybody in the country right now, Donegal are the team we have to put all our hopes on in terms of ambushing Dublin.
Aldrin McNeilish was obviously part of the Gweedore team who reached the All-Ireland club final, and that's a club that suffered great tragedy this year, and afterwards he said he was going to take a break, and then in April he said he just didn't have the desire to get back in. Would you ring him up now and say, have a couple of months away, made an impact, and say, look, come on, even give him another 2 or 3 weeks, or is that a phone call you make at this point?
Like it certainly could be. Like he will add something to the team because he is that good a player. The thing is, they've done pretty well without him. They've got this amazing thing going now where they're flying it. And how do other players in the squad look at that?
I think if you're a player in the squad and you're going for, if they're now going to the Super 8s, right? We know that 100% they're going to the Super 8s. Like it would take a horrible draw. They'd need to get Tyrone again in the final round. They need to get beaten by Cavan and then get Tyrone again in the final round. And who knows? But anyway, more than likely, I think if you're part of that setup and you're trying to win in All-Ireland, anybody who comes into the squad, even for training, is going to be welcome because you're smart enough to realise that this is a 35-man squad at this point, especially heading into the Super 8s.
Yeah, Mayo have got down in the qualifiers.
So that's not a bad draw. Do we know? We don't have venues yet.
Westmeath against Limerick, Longford against Tyrone, Antrim against Kildare, Clare against Leitrim, and there's just one more to be, or three more, sorry, to be done by my count here. So basically, if you wanted a good draw round 2 of the qualifiers, which personally I don't really want. I want to save it for kind of the bigger days and perhaps the Super 8s. Then it's going pretty well from that perspective to avoid them because Mayo are already out, Tyrone are already out. Monaghan have not been drawn against either of them, which would have been the 2 headline potentials up against Monaghan. So Derry against Laois is the next one out of the hat. So that one is actually going to be one of the more interesting ties in terms of a level playing field in the back door. Just on what you were saying there, like, it's kind of dispiriting once again listening to the discourse around Dublin yesterday about the attendance, which was above what people expected at Croke Park yesterday. You do start to wonder if the All-Ireland becomes the Leinster Championship in a short period of time, because I was thinking to myself, God, if you took Dublin out of the All-Ireland Championship, it would be an amazing All-Ireland Championship.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you really think that anybody inside the top 10 teams, top 12 teams in the country would actually
run,
they would put a good contest up against one another. That's exactly how we've been speaking about the Leinster Championship for the last couple of years. If you take Dublin out of it, it's a great championship. Like, I don't want to be too fatalistic here, but I do wonder if it's not just going to be a similar level of ease for Dublin as it was in 2017, but easier once again.
Monaghan, Armagh.
I forgot about the Armagh still being in there. Monaghan, Armagh tie it around without question. That is an absolute cracker. And
there should be no Ulster teams against each other in the qualifiers rule. Every other province is grand, but no Ulster teams.
Yeah, especially this year. And Offaly Sligo is the last draw. So just to run through all of that, again, it's Westmeath against Limerick, Longford against Tyrone, Antrim against Kildare, Clare against Leitrim, Offaly versus Sligo, Mayo versus Down, Derry versus Laois, and Monaghan versus Armagh. Monaghan versus Armagh, obviously, as we said, the tie of the round. Derry against Laois would be another cracker, and Mayo against Down is also probably going to be an exceptional game for about 40-50 minutes
if Longford
at the very
versus
least.
Tyrone is not in Tyrone, and it shouldn't be, right? Then I can see that game being interesting.
Well, Longford, is it 10 years this year, 11 years this year, when they famously knocked actually it is 10 years, it was 2009, wasn't it, when they dumped Tyrone out of the back door. Wasn't it Tyrone that day, or was it Mayo that they knocked out? They've been able to do it anyway on the big day.
O'Mahony's Mayo.
That's it, exactly. They've been able to do it on the big day. They still remember those amazing backdoor days. They've knocked Monaghan out at the back door a couple of years ago as well. So they are the definition of a qualifier banana skin.
Any thoughts on the Stephen Cluxton montage tribute on the big screen at the neutral venue that all Meath, Kildare and Laois fans had to endure? Any doubt that the GAA pander to Dublin is gone, says Connor on our YouTube comments. So 100 appearances for the Dubs, and they put a montage together celebrating the best goalkeeper of his generation. Is this a sin? Or is this something that you're not supposed to do?
It's unusual for sure if we do believe it's a neutral venue. The thing is, it's not a neutral venue. Croke Park is
the Dubs' home ground.
It's a Dubs patch. Like, let's cut the bullshit here.
The Dublin County Board didn't decide to put that up. Somebody else decided to put that up, right?
Well, I'm glad to see that the GA realised that Croke Park is a place for Dublin people. Dublin fans get to attend Croke Park cheaper than other fans around the country. It's as simple as that, because they open the hill for the Dubs around this time of the year. And it's unfair, it's unjust, but we've been harping on about this, and Dublin fans will say, stop whinging and respect the greatest team of all time who have all these advantages in their place. The Stephen Cluxton thing, I don't have a huge issue with it. Apparently it went on for like 3 minutes.
I mean, I'd say they would do the same for Gooch. Was there not one for Gooch? Was there not one
for Kerry game?
Like, yeah, would there not?
No.
Should they not do this for like somebody from loads of these teams? No, is this not like?
They did it when like Gooch retired, maybe after he had stopped playing. Like before the game where that person is actually playing in a supposedly neutral venue is kind of weird. But then again, it's not a neutral.
No difference.
It's
it
not
makes
a neutral
no difference.
venue.
Kildare didn't look at that yesterday and go, oh, we're screwed now. That guy's playing. Like, it makes no difference.
I'm not saying it didn't make a difference.
It's just pre-match entertainment. People need to stop giving out about this stuff.
It's just further confirmation of what Croke Park is.
They have a big screen and they're going to use it and they're going to put stuff up on it that's quite good. There should be much more of this type of thing. The next time Tipperary play Kilkenny, there should be like highlights from the trilogy in 3 years when they played in All-Ireland finals in a row. There should be, the next time that Dublin and Meath are playing in an All-Ireland final, they should be playing Kevin Foley's goal before that game. Is everybody going to say, oh, this is biased against the Dubs because they won that 4-game saga? They're not.
Say Lionel Messi's last game is a Champions League final in a neutral venue. Would it be weird to post up a thank you Lionel Messi?
Absolutely not.
On the video screen?
No, absolutely not. It would not. I don't think it would at all. I'd say I was a bit late into the ground, so I only saw the last 15 minutes of the build-up. But I'm sure there was loads of Liverpool stuff that the Spurs fans must have been going, oh, but then you don't have anything there, Spurs fans. You don't have any footage of you guys in Champions League finals before, so tough. Well,
I'm sure what they were playing was their videos of their paths to the final. On an equal footing and stuff. You're right, it's no big deal. I'm not that particularly exercised about it. I just start to get exercised whenever I think about the idea that people still think that this is a neutral venue.
We've got 2 pairs of tickets for Ireland's clash with Gibraltar tonight. Just share today's stream. Tell us who you're going to bring, along with this answer to a very simple question. What's the combined Irish goal tally of James McLean and Conor Horan? If you want to go to the match, and you can collect those tickets from our office. We're on Diggs Lane near Stephen's Green. It's about a 20-minute walk from the Aviva if you walk fast. We will announce our winners before 9:30. Up next, we're going to be chatting rugby with Alan Quinlan. But first, after yesterday's Leinster clash between Galway and Kilkenny, saw 3 players red-carded. Tommy Walsh called for a greater willingness to side with common sense.
When we were watching the game, there was obviously a few talking points. One of the big ones is descending offs. Now that you've had a little bit of time to think about it, what do you make of them?
Yeah, so listen, I think just the way refereeing and the way the game is being refereed at the moment, I'd say technically they were probably all sending offs. But I suppose this is where my argument with the game is that I always think a sending off should be for someone that goes out to do something they shouldn't be doing. But if it's a mistake or an old tangle or something like that where it's harmless enough, I think we should try and keep as many lads on the field as possible, as opposed to looking for a reason to put a guy off. Dirty challenges, things like that, or maybe a guy straight through and goal and he's taken out of it on purpose. Possibly something like that, maybe, where you could punish the opposition. But I think that the 3 ones today now, you could make an argument for just try and keep lads on the field.
Alan Quinlan, the man after Tommy Walsh's heart there, try and keep players on the field, just let a bit of common sense. Yourself and Tommy always wanted a bit of common sense in the referees.
A bit of common sense. You have to have a bit of reality though as well, Jar, and the way the game has gone in any game, any sport now, you got to be really careful, and discipline is such an important part of it. But look, there's some...
I think the high tackle in hurling is a really good thing that they're introducing. It's important because other sports are learning this too, the whole tackle, and that rugby is just getting to grips with and getting a little bit better year on year. It's still very controversial, but you're seeing far fewer players being tackled in the air in rugby. You're seeing far fewer players being dumped, unless you count the England under-20s last week, and it's just made the sport a much better sport.
It's making it safer. It's making it tricky for the players, because in the heat of the battle, some of these decisions are split moment decisions. They're not actually dirty, they're just kind of reckless, and guys are getting punished for it, and it's tough to see guys going off the field. If you see someone doing something intentional, we all go, yeah, that's a red card and he should be sent off, and it's wrong.
Yeah.
But sometimes you see people going off the field now and you're kind of going, oh, it's ruined the game. When you start talking about ruining the game, it means that you have a bit of empathy or sympathy for them. But I think discipline is just a really key ingredient, and People laugh at me talking about discipline.
I
wasn't that bad. I've more of a bad name than anything, you know. But
you know what you're talking about is the thing. That's
but it is crucial, and even it's just giving away frees in GA soccer. You know, the free the other night for Shane Duffy's goal. You could argue it's a bit of poor discipline. Don't give away that opportunity, and sometimes you get punished for it. So, to our benefit, on Friday night, you know, Shane Duffy gets a great header, but discipline is just a really important part. But there's a fine line between discipline, Ger, and this is where you get divided opinion between being too nice and being a little bit cynical. Because sometimes to win, you need to be a bit ruthless and cynical in sport and just push the boundaries a little bit. Some people will jump on that and say, well, it's negative and it's wrong and you are cheating as such. But, you know, to win things, sometimes you need to push it a little bit. It's somewhere in the middle, but stupid discipline gets punished, and that rightly so gets punished and highlighted.
It's very rare that any team wins anything without having a cynical hard edge to them.
Yeah, it is. And look at the under-20s on Saturday, where Ryan Baird is tackling Will Addison. He's 6'6" or 7, and
a lot of people wouldn't have seen this. So he gets sent off 15 minutes in. Is it even earlier?
Yeah, it was
relatively early in the game. Ireland are down to 14 men against the Wallabies. So Ireland won their first game in the under-20s.
Yeah, he was 20 minutes in, yeah.
Against England, coming from behind. And this is the Ireland team that won the Grand Slam. Shorn of some of their best players, but it looked like they'd kind of weathered that storm against an Australia team who, it turns out, are absolutely brilliant.
They're a brilliant side, and Ireland go 10-0 down. Ryan Baird sent off as well, and you think, God, you fear the worst from him, because it was always going to be difficult.
He deserved to get sent off because it's a high tackle.
Yeah, but it's one of those ones, Ger, and you know, I've been fairly vocal in some of these tackles that have happened in the last few years, and I'm against them. I think players need to just change their body language. They need to take off a little bit of the aggression and the explosive nature going in, trying to put in a massive tackle, and then players slipping under the arm or them just been slipping up. They've just got to be more careful. So it's going to change behaviours of players right across the board. And with the under-20s now, World Rugby have they've not brought in anything new, but they've introduced protocols around getting ticks after the game, and if you get 3, you'll get a suspension. And they put a real emphasis at this World Cup about the high tackle. And, you know, we've seen 2 players getting sin binned for England against Ireland last week, and then the red card for England as well, and then Ryan Baird on Saturday. So, letter of the law, it's a red card, but it was one of those ones that you go, oh, that's...
There was no malicious intent in it, but it is a high tackle, and so therefore if the sport's going to improve,
it's a high tackle in a low body position, because he's obviously a very tall guy, and the number 10 for Australia, he's a lot shorter, and he ducks into it, and it's an arm, and it slides up along. He knew straight away, and I think according to you know, the emphasis that's been put on it, and look, it was very difficult for Ireland then, and you think they're in big trouble here against a very, very talented Australian side. Incredibly, on 59 minutes, I was about to send a tweet to say, well, Andy Farrell is rubbing his hands here with what he's seen here. The effort level and the composure and just the quality of the side was phenomenal. But the worry throughout the game was that they'd implode, and the effort would just hit him in the last 20 minutes. They had 2 hookers, 2 scrum halves on the field right at the end. They have a number of players missing before the tournament. They had the full-back, Hughes, and Allison, the number 8, both pulled out. Both couldn't play with this game. Ronan Waters went off with a concussion. So they've 7 or 8, at least 7 or 8 guys who were starting probably in the Six Nations, and then they got more injuries during the game and the sending off, and Australia scored 5 tries. It was 17-10 on 59 minutes, and then Australia showed their quality and showed their mettle, and just Ireland were hanging on. So it was a disappointing last 20 minutes, but it's crazy that they play Italy now on Wednesday, 8 days, 3 games in 8 days like that is very attritional, and it's hard on young players like that.
Can they still go through?
if they beat Italy with a bonus point and put up a good score, they can make the semi-finals. I think if they can get to that position, they have a real chance of beating any of them. I think if they had 15 players in the field against Australia the other day, and some of the players that went off injury, they had a couple of concussions, they're capable. Australia are the best side in the tournament, so they showed a lot of promise on Saturday. So it went from being wow to going, oh no. But to be fair, they were completely battered and bruised by the end of it, and it had an inevitable feel right at the end that Australia were going to kick on and score those tries, but unfortunately
the Aussies had a second row who was as fast as a sprinter.
Phenomenal kick-off. They levelled the game 17-all. They kicked the ball off. Second row, Frost catches it. A bit of a pod comes down and just takes off up along the touchline, and the speed was sensational. It was an incredible try, and I saw Matt Williams tweeting about him, actually saying this guy has been doing this in schools rugby in Australia for years. He went over for a year to the Crusaders in New Zealand. He's come back now, signed with the Brumbies. He's 6'8", and I don't know if you saw it, but Google it.
It's insane.
It's incredible. He just takes off, and the speed. And for a big guy like that,
do you not just stick him on the wing now for the senior team?
You're not just start him, Ger.
Oh, maybe,
you're not just start him.
Yeah.
He came off the bench, but it was just unbelievable. The try was just unbelievable. Ireland were hanging on at the end, and they had so much possession. They had like 70% possession after half time. They were just brilliant, and they were 10-7 down, and they kept going for, like, they were 10-0 at one stage. Then Casey gets to try. Gives them a real lifeline. They go in after half time. They're just battering the Australian line for ages and ages. Loads of penalties been given against Australia. Probably should have been a sin bin. They scored a try. They get a penalty. Eventually they kick a penalty right under the post because they kept kicking them into the corner. Kickable penalties when it was 10-7. They leveled at 10-all, and then they get the try, and I just thought it was just an unbelievable effort from that side, who were really, really stretched regards the personnel and the side they were playing.
Plenty for them to build on.
Loads.
In terms of the senior team, is there any possibility that any of these players can actually make a World Cup squad? That's just beyond the bounds of, that's not how rugby works anymore?
No, it's not going to happen. I think the Irish squad's preparations will start next week, and they'll be back at training. They're going into camp.
Tommy O'Donnell is the closest thing to a bolter, potentially.
Yeah, I think he's a real chance of making the squad, because he's a real natural 7, and if he gets a good run in pre-season, there's the vast majority of the squad are familiar faces and players we know, but that's the way it should be, you know what I mean, because there's been a build-up over the last couple of years to get to the group to this stage.
But it was like that a little bit in 2011, and Conor Murray comes out of nowhere, essentially. Not maybe he wasn't out of nowhere for you guys, because you kind of knew exactly what he was like, but for the rest of the country, it was like, this guy's pretty good. He should really be in the team. He's in the team. That kind of... It was like that.
Yeah, but if you look at the side, Ger, even after a bad Six Nations, a disappointing Six Nations, I would say, there's no real areas that you go, like... There's no one jumping out there who's going to come in and be a starter. There's a couple of people for sure might come out of it and have a brilliant pre-season with him and force Joe's hand. But the vast majority of the players are kind of the squad. The vast majority of that squad is picked. It wouldn't be picked on paper, but we could probably pick it pretty close.
It's just about getting them into form.
Yeah, it is, and getting those combinations right, and there's a fair bit of the area that we spoke about. The back row is probably the area, particularly that 7. If there was any more injuries, there is a concern. But they'll hit the ground next week, and it'll be build up the fitness first and foremost for the first couple of weeks. I'm sure they'll do some skills along with the weights and the fitness training and do. But pre-season is about building up a really good base that takes you through the year, and getting the balance of that right. Not overtraining either. We probably overtrained in 2007. That's been well documented when we went to France. We were on our feet a lot, and we were happy to do that because we felt we were pushing ourselves hard. It was a very, very competitive group who were trying to make that World Cup squad. We went around Ireland. we had a lot of contact sessions. We had a lot of, we went all over the place with the camps we went, and we probably kicked the lard out of each other for most of that summer. So I think getting a squad of players fit, healthy, and really energised going to the World Cup is it'll be the focus. And the first couple of weeks are about building the muscle and the power and the speed and the fitness.
Do you want, if you're one of the Southern Hemisphere, do you want your best players at the minute still trying to kill each other as they are in the Super Rugby, or do you want everybody off now for a couple of weeks? What would you prefer?
Well, I'm sure their programmes down there will implement some rest periods for the Southern Hemisphere players. It's not as busy as normal summer in the Tri-Nations for the Southern Hemisphere team. So I think it'll be about breaks, and I think Ireland come back for a couple of weeks, then take a week off, then come back for a couple of weeks and maybe have a few days off here and there. And that's how you kind of hit peak recovery. And look, sports science is way more advanced now. They all have monitors on, they all have heart. They have daily checks with the doctors and stuff like that. So it's about getting that balance right for individually as well. Some guys will be, it's amazing when you have the camps now, some guys will actually be told to stay out of training, and other guys will be told to do extra, if the body is capable. So everything is monitored now, and that'll be the same for all the teams going to the World Cup. So is it better that you're kind of on a pre-season and you're or do the Southern Hemisphere teams have more of an advantage? They probably have more of an advantage because they're playing matches.
It feels that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, they're playing matches. And, games at times. How beneficial will the World Cup warm-up games be? How much will you get out of them? Well, it's really just getting a run out, isn't it? It's hard to really get up to speed, but you do try and blow off the cobwebs a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Alan, good stuff. Thanks for joining us today. We'll have more rugby during the week when we talk about the rest of the under-20s. But for now, we're turning back to football. We're going to be joined by Kevin Kilbane next. Here's a clip first from Mick McCarthy and Seamus Coleman's press conference to set the scene.
Seamus, hi. Just in terms of the last home game at the Aviva in this campaign, there was a real sense of the team trying to pass the ball a little bit more, certainly from what I saw, and also against the bigger nations trying to press and get after them. In this game tomorrow, given that we should have more of the ball than Gibraltar, and if we try and press them properly, do you feel we can really put on a real football performance at home?
Yeah, that's what we've been trying to do since the managers come in. You've touched on it there yourself. Against Georgia, it was to press them first and try and win the ball back as high up the pitch as we can, and then play from there. And at times we did that very well against Georgia. And then especially I think when we were 1-0 down against Denmark, we played some really good football, so we're capable of it, and we're playing at home in front of our own fans. So the result is the most important thing, but of course we want to get the ball down and put on a performance. Yeah.
Is that something that, as a player, that gives you guys more confidence if the manager and the coaching staff are asking you, one, to get on the ball, and two, to get after the opposition high up? Because sometimes if you're playing against a team that's supposedly better than you, if you drop off, maybe you're already allowing them to play their natural game, whereas if you go and press and try and get in the ball, it's what you guys do that matters, as opposed to overly focusing on the opposition.
Yeah, I think it's the best way to play. Try and win the ball back high up against good teams, and even against Denmark at times we try to do it, and there is going to be times where you get picked off with the likes of Ericsson playing balls around the corner. But me being a defender, if we're trying to play from the back and teams are pressing, it's difficult. So that's not what you want. So if we can do that and win the ball back and play from there, then great.
Kevin Kilbane, good morning to you.
Morning, Jay. How you keeping?
Yeah, how enthusiastic are you about this Ireland team at the moment with what you've seen so far?
Well, I think the other night there was a few positives. I think second half, I think we did see a little bit of the same as it was under Martin O'Neill, where we were a little bit too defensive. I think we did drop a little bit too deep, but that was because the team were protecting something. So I think the first half that's been touched on there is what Seamus was talking about. I think there was more of a press on. I think without the ball, I think we were better. I think we were trying to force Denmark back. I just like to see us try and continue that across a 70, 80 minute period. You can't do it across a 90, but certainly a more concerted press coming on from the team. And I think later on in the game we could have won it, but I think overall Denmark would probably be disappointed that they didn't win the game with the chances that they created.
Yeah, look, here's the thing. Our away form was way better than our home form in the last campaign, and so therefore you can't just say away draws are the way to qualification, because there's no guarantee that our home form is going to improve. You would hope that it will, but if we beat Gibraltar tonight, granted we've had the early games against Gibraltar, but we've put the points on the board and we've got that little sense of confidence into the group, which didn't have confidence, and it's very much now Mick McCarthy's team. There's a few players who've come into the side, so they can largely write off what happened in the last qualifying campaign and in the Nations League, and start looking forward to the rest of the campaign with a bit of confidence.
Yeah, I think what you're touching on there, the home and away form, Jeb. Away from home, yes. I think it's easier to go away from home, or easier, I think, to go away from home with a little bit of less pressure and sit a bit deeper. We did that in the second half. There were positive signs, or more positive signs, on how we are going to play against teams at home in that Georgia match. I think we had longer spells with the ball. I think we created a lot more chances, I think, throughout that game. Certainly a lot more openings. The lack of opportunities at goal, I think that was a thing that maybe disappoint, I think, overall in that Georgia match. But it was certainly a lot more positive. And the Gibraltar result aside tonight, I think we're not going to judge the performances going forward on that. It's how we play against the Swiss, how we play against the Danes in Dublin. And I think Mick McCarthy will instill a little bit more belief in the team that they can take the ball, because the one thing that was noticeable in that game against Denmark the other night was we're lacking in midfield on a real willingness to come and take the ball under a little bit of pressure. When there's a man up your backside, sometimes you're going to have to hit the ball. You're going to have to take it and have a willingness to take it, and then free up other players. That was a thing that was notable again the other night. We were just a little bit too negative, I think, with our passing, but there was certainly signs that we are growing and we are going to get better.
That's something that's been brought up a bit over the last couple of days, is this idea of that Irish midfield. And like what you say is definitely true. The way I looked at it in terms of something that's really concerning is the chances that we coughed up. And we do wonder sometimes if that holding midfield role is really locked down. Glenn Whelan is going to come to a conclusion at some stage. Is there anybody that you have in mind that might be able to plug those gaps that were just available too often on Friday night?
Well, do you know, it was interesting, and I maybe just gauging it from what Aston Villa did in the playoff semi-final. They used Glenn Whelan in the first leg of the playoff semi-final against West Brom. Conor Howard played in that position as a holding midfielder. Now, he would have to probably be a little bit more disciplined. It's not quite worked when Howard's played in that role when he's played there for Ireland, but he can play there. Now, it will free up an extra or a more attacking player in the midfield three ahead of him, if that was going to be the case. I think there's a chance for Mick McCarthy in this game to try it tonight. Doesn't necessarily need to use Glenn Whelan in this game, because I think it is going to serve his purpose when he's using Glenn Whelan in the games against Denmark and Switzerland. That's how it would probably be going forward. So I was actually quite disappointed with Conor Howard and with Jeff Hendrick at times, and even Glenn Whelan. Again, I go back to the point, a little bit of a reluctance to receive the ball. And I think it was on so many times, if it's Enda Stevens, if it's Seamus Coleman, when they check back in midfield and they give them the ball, there's a chance of switch play. So often when we receive the ball in midfield, we go back towards where the balls come from, and I think it just condenses play and it allows Denmark to get set up as it proved the other night. Or if it's even a backwards pass, so often we received passes in midfield, we went backwards and we ended up back in our 18-yard box, and it allowed Denmark to regroup and reset. So often I felt there was times to pass forward and there was no real demand on the man on the ball. Give me that pass, give me the ball, and that's what I'd be looking for more, particularly in this game. We can play with a bit more freedom, and I think that this type of game tonight against Gibraltar can give us belief for the rest of the campaign.
Is that on Glenn Whelan, or is that more on Hurling? What do you...
Yeah, I do think it's on those lads in midfield. I do. I think it's up to those lads to demand it. Even Jeff Hendrick, when we kind of changed the shape of the side through the midfield, we went with one sitter with Glenn Whelan, and then we changed it to two, where we kind of put Conor Howard alongside Glenn Whelan, with Jeff Hendrick playing as a 10. Whoever's playing in the positions in midfield, you've got to be prepared to take it. And so often, I don't think we were putting demands on each other to receive the ball, and that is the necessity, I think, all over the pitch. Yes, when you're looking back at the game, I'm sure Mick McCarthy looks back at the game. I think he shows the team little bits of video analysis from the game on how they can improve and how they can receive the ball. That's got to be the message to the team. Look, you can give it and give it your teammate in the middle of the park, but when you're on that pitch, the demand has to be there. It has to be there from the midfield and even the attacking players as well.
Can the management fix that, or is that down to the players? Like, how do you... So you spot this, you have to assume that Robbie Keane and Mick McCarthy spot the same thing, and in training they're saying, are they on the training pitch going, okay, look, this is exactly the same scenario we had against Denmark, the practice team and the practice team, and you're penning us back in by not swiveling your hips. Who's doing that conversation?
Well, you mentioned Robbie there. Certainly Robbie Keane. When I was playing left back in the side with Robbie Keane, if I didn't pass it forward to him and try and get him in the game early, he would be on your case. He used to get on your nerves, in your ear constantly, telling you to give it in, give me the ball, give me the ball. That was the message from him all the time, wherever he was on the pitch. Whether he was under pressure, there might be even two players on him. He wants the ball to be played into. If he lost it, then it's his responsibility. But he took that responsibility to take the ball. That is the thing that I think he would be noticing straight away, that the ball's not been fired into David McGoldrick enough. The ball's not been... If I was playing as a left back or even a left winger, whichever it would be, if I'm playing as a left back, and the players that I would have played in front of would be the likes of Dennis Irwin, whether it be Steve Staunton, Ian Hart, whoever it would be, their first option was to give me the ball as a wide man. That was they would relay that message to me. I'll pass forward, I'll get you in the game quickly. Second option then would be to a striker's feet. Then your third option latterly would be go inside or even backwards. I don't think that's the case. I think at the moment the mindset is we're checking back when we're on the ball. We're playing safe. That's what it is, and it's understandable with you're protecting something over there in Denmark. We were protecting the result. Now you were saying there whose responsibility is it? It's noticeable. So I'm sure that Mick McCarthy and particularly Robbie Keane will be seeing that from the sideline, that you can actually put the message into the players' heads. Look, if it's Glenn Whelan or whoever it will be that's taking the ball in midfield, open your body out and fire it into the striker as quickly as possible. And I don't think the difficult passes at times, the risk taking, and they're going to make mistakes by doing that because they're going to give the ball away, passing it into dangerous areas. But it's certainly on at times, and I think it will be. The way that Gibraltar will play, if you've seen them, I'm sure you have seen them, they sit with a back five, they sit with five in front of them, there's very little distances between them. So forward passing, as in, sometimes you might have to turn them, you might have to turn the defence, because by doing that, you might give the ball away, but what it does, it stretches the game, and we have to do more of that, I feel. And we're just not probably doing it enough because we're protecting, and the result that was there with 20 minutes to go, a good 0-0 draw away from home against Denmark, would have been a decent result. As it turned out, we got the draw in the end. But it was only when they scored we actually tried to force the issue a little bit. And I'd just like to see it a little bit more and be a little bit braver. Yeah, it was the change of personnel, change any of that. So if James McCarthy comes back and gets game time, I mean, he'd need to play a lot of football in August. So it's unlikely that he's going to replace them. But who knows? Stranger things have happened in football. Is he? Yeah, I mean, there's Josh Cullen's one that you're looking at there. I think he's impressed me with how he played at Charlton towards the back end of the season. So there's players like him that you could give a bit of game time to. And as I was saying before, you could actually play Conor Harron in that position and maybe change the position for Robbie Brady or bring Callum O'Dowda into the team or however he wants to work it. There's a number of options. Rowan Curtis is another option that you could bring in and change the personnel positional wise. That's what Mick McCarthy could do. So. There are options, Joe. There are certainly options for Mick within it. But, I mean, he suggested yesterday that he wants continuity. He likes the team, how they've been progressing. He likes what he's seen. And it'll be pretty much the same. But, as I was saying, I think there are options there for Mick, and I think he could make changes in this game. We should talk about Matt Doherty because we talked about it a little bit earlier on with Nathan. Seamus Coleman had he's had an excellent game, but more than that, he's being an excellent leader for the team. So you have to assume that his position is nailed on. But just to go back to the whole, no one's taking any conclusions from the Gibraltar game because the weather was so bad. It was a terrible performance that we win 1-0. The only thing that we're taking from that game is that Matt Doherty can't possibly play alongside Seamus Coleman, and that seems unbelievably unfair and quite short-sighted when we don't really have. Nathan made the point that Robbie Brady and Seamus Coleman didn't have any better of an understanding than Matt Doherty and Seamus Coleman, even though Brady and Coleman have played together way more. So surely they should have been spending the last 2 weeks working on it, trying to find a way to get Matt Doherty's football skills into the team. Yeah, you can't disagree with that. Robbie Brady wasn't his usual best, and he hasn't been playing well for a while. Robbie, I think he's been injured as well, which hasn't helped him. I actually felt in that Gibraltar game, I felt there was more errors, or I think there was a lot more to look at down the left-hand side rather than the right in that Gibraltar match. That's the way I felt immediately after the game. Yes, there was a few loose passes. That was the pitch. It was the weather. We knew that was going to go that way. But I think Enda Stevens had his best game the other night for Ireland. I thought he played well. But James McLean and Robbie Brady ahead of them, of our main attacking players, aren't playing well in Irish jerseys. They're not at the best at all. And I think those two in particular, even James, I think he probably admitted himself, he's not necessarily playing his natural game. He's not free flowing. He's not getting crosses into the area. So I can't disagree with what you're saying there in relation to Matt Doherty. I think he's the sort of player. I think he just needs a run of games. I think they can play together. I think it'd be easy to fit them both into the side. And as you say, it would have been a chance maybe to work with it on the training ground. But I think what Mick McCarthy's probably done in the last two games, the Georgia and that Denmark game, he's probably had a set way in his head on how he's going to play. There was that game the other week against the under-21s. I think he would have tried to give himself an idea from that game how he's going to play, what personnel he's going to use. And he maybe sees Robbie Brady. I think Robbie Brady's probably a better attacking option than Matt Doherty on the right, but it's not working for him. So that's where you've got to use your squad, and you've got to try and use different personnel in those games to try and get the best out of them. But I'm with you. I do believe that combination down the right can work. I think it might be something maybe further down the line, further down the track for Mick to use,
Yeah, maybe, hopefully, in between us qualifying and the actual tournament itself. We've got the game against Gibraltar tonight, and then it's back-to-back pretty much against the Swiss home and away in September, October. So we're going to know a lot more about where we stand by the end of that, as opposed to anything that happens tonight, right?
Yeah, I think so. I just the best thing about what's happened, certainly with Denmark, now Denmark are chasing. Denmark are going to have to force issues in games. They're going to have to go for it. We'll have the eyes on that Georgia match tonight with them playing. But I think it's just about. I really do think tonight there's a really good chance. I know it's easy to say. We rarely ever do it, Joe. We don't go out and win 4 or 5, 6-0. It really happens with us. But there's a chance tonight to create chances, play with a bit of confidence, a bit of expression. The solidity will always be there. You mentioned Seamus Coleman earlier on. The back four, I thought, played really well. There was elements of the night where we did drop a little bit too deep late on, and that's why Højbjerg got the goal for Denmark in the end. The back fours, in fairness, it's always been good, hasn't it? Take that Denmark playoff game out. We've been good as a back four. It's been fine. That's not the issue within the side. It is in advance. We have to start creating more chances. Tonight is an opportunity to be a little bit freer, take risks, because they're not going to hurt us. They're not going to hurt us on a regular basis. They're not going to be coming at us. They're not going to be running in behind us. So tonight is an opportunity, I feel, to play with a bit of expression and create chances more than anything else.
All right, Kev, enjoy the game tonight. Thanks a million.
Well done, Jay. Cheers, Owen.
It's Kev giving us some thoughts ahead of the game this evening that you can hear live on Off the Ball throw-in, and the radio show is at 7 o'clock, and obviously the game kicks off at 7:45. Shane Keegan and David Sneyd here taking a look at the astonishing development of Scott Hogan during Sunday's pay-per-view yesterday. Have a look.
I didn't realise he was such a late bloomer. He was saying this 10 years ago, he was throwing tyres onto a conveyor belt, was his day job. Earning, what did they say,
260 quid a week.
260 quid a week. Like 10 years ago, that's
it was a recycling plant.
Very, very quick.
And where was he working? In Carrington, just literally around the corner from where Man United and Man City at the time trained.
Okay.
It was like in a recycling plant. And Philip Quinn, he spoke to us Sundays, but Quinner's intro is very good, and I'll just read a quote for it because I thought it was good. He just says, Scott Hogan is lugging tractor-sized tyres onto a conveyor belt in a recycling plant near Carrington. This is his life, and it sucks. He bends, picks up a tyre and puts it on a belt again and again. Sometimes he switches so the heft changes, but the mindset stays the same. And this is a quote from Hogan. I hate my life. I don't know I don't know where I'm going here. And then it goes into the details. And there's a lot of players in that Ireland squad that I've discovered myself over the last while who have great stories. Like these lads, because they aren't maybe of all of the academy variety, have had to work their balls off to get here.
It's the story of Scott Hogan, as told by David Sneyd on yesterday's pay-per-view, which is available to subscribe on the OTB Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcasts. BMW and Triathlon Ireland are challenging the OTB team to hashtag Try for Pieta this summer and raise funds for Pieta House. For more information, check out Triathlon Ireland. We're nearly there. We're a week away from it. We're doing hooker by crook. At least we are, anyway. Owen's pretending to be sick a little bit this week.
Stop complaining. Michael Verney is bang on the money when he came in earlier on to tell you guys to shut up complaining about the triathlon. I haven't even practiced and I'm going to be fine. Relax, guys. It's all going to be okay.
Yeah, we'll see.
Like,
see, because obviously
it's actually embarrassing the whinging you've been doing in particular, Ger. This massive there's people who are out there training for 180k cycles right now.
Fair play to them.
And most of them wouldn't have got on a bike until this year.
There's no shame. Everybody has their own distance. I was just thinking this yesterday. I was like, look, it's fine. Everybody has their own distance, and we shouldn't be shaming people who are only doing, like us, their first leg. This will evolve. Next year we'll do the full thing each. We'll see what happens.
Well, we might revisit that after Saturday. But I like your optimism.
What's going on in the world?
Well, we'll start with the draw for round 2 of the All-Ireland Senior Football Qualifiers. Are we going with Monaghan and Armagh as the pick of the ties?
It definitely is, yeah.
Yeah? Well, that's the pick of the ties. So the interesting ones as well to look out for, Mayo have been drawn with Down. That game is going to be in Newry. Last year's All-Ireland finals, Tyrone will go to Longford, Westmeath will play Limerick, Antrim will face Kildare, Leitrim and Clare, and Derry against Laois, and then Offaly and Sligo. So we'll find out tomorrow the times, dates and venues, but the games will be held in 2 weeks' time on the 22nd and 23rd. And just on the story you had earlier on, you were talking about the concussion story, or the
Sun had it that Orla Bannon's story had it that Charlie O'Byrne had been taken off the field with symptoms that may have been related to a potential concussion last week. Now there's a suggestion that it wasn't concussion this week.
Yeah, Oisin McConville was part of that draw. That was being made this morning, and he said that he came off because he was dehydrated, exhausted, and they were putting him on a drip.
Right.
So that...
Does that clear it up, or is that the end of the story?
It'd be interesting to hear the official Armagh GAA response once that comes out as well. So you'd imagine his sources are very good as well.
Because Armagh said he was never concussed in the first place. He was only a little bit fuzzy after a head injury. That does sound a little bit like a concussion, you'd have to say. So,
obviously, yesterday was a busy day in Gaelic games. All-Ireland hurling champions Limerick knew going into the game against Clare, if they lost, they could be out of the Munster Championship, but John Colley's side were impressive winners. 128 to 13 points at the Gaelic grounds, so they're into the next round of the championship. Kilkenny and Galway served up an absolute cracker at Nolan Park in the Leinster Championship. 3 players sent off. Galway won it by 320 to 222. First championship defeat at Nolan Park for Kilkenny since 1949, and sets it all up for next weekend. All-Ireland football champions Dublin will take on Meath in the Leinster final. The Dubs saw off Kildare by 26 points to 11 at Croke Park. That after Meath had beaten Laois by 313 to 11 points. Stephen Cluxton made his 100th championship appearance for the Dubs yesterday. Cavan are into the Ulster final, first time in 18 years. A 23 points to 17 win over Armagh in their semi-final replay in Clonus. So Cavan will play Donegal, who beat Tyrone on Saturday night. Rory McIlroy warmed up for this week's US Open by winning the Canadian Open by 7 shots. The 4-time major winner carded the final round 61 to finish up on 22 under par. Had a chance to break 60 if he had birdied the last, but missed the green with his approach shot, and his tee shot was perfect. He had an 8-iron in his hand for the
You saying choke field, is that what you're saying?
No. He bogeyed the 16th as well. But it was the eagle. The eagle on 17 was pretty impressive. But a great week for Shane Lowry as well, finishing a share of second place at Webb Simpson on 15 under. Webb Simpson chipped in on the last to get that.
Stinking.
152 grand is how much that cost Shane Lowry. But there was obviously a great weekend as well for Graham McDowell. He finished in the top 10, which means he will be at the Open next month, which of course will be held at his home course of Portrush. Just talking about the Republic of Ireland there, they can make it 3 wins from 4 in Group D of the Euro 2020 qualifiers. Mick McCarthy's side hosts Gibraltar tonight at the Aviva Stadium. A 7:45 kick-off. England, Italy and Brazil all won at the Women's World Cup yesterday. 2 more group games today. In Group D, Argentina take on Japan and Paris from 5. Canada face Cameroon in Group E at 8 o'clock. Rafa Nadal claimed his 12th French Open title. He beat Dominic Thiem in 4 sets in the final in Paris. So 18 Grand Slams in total for the Spaniard. And you'd have to think that he's going to improve that, given how impressive he is on clay. Ireland reached the final in the World Cup of Darts. They shocked England, shocked the Netherlands, but Willie O'Connor and Steve Lennon came up short with a 3-1 defeat to Scotland in the final in Hamburg. And story that has come out of the Dominican Republic Former Boston Red Sox player David Ortiz has been shot and wounded in a nightclub. We don't know how serious the injury is. His father, Leo, told ESPN that the police said that David Ortiz was injured. They took him into a medical centre. They didn't say how he is or exactly where he was transferred to, but police say the gunman approached from behind, shot him at point blank range.
All right, Phil, good stuff. Thanks for that. The winner of our Ireland Gibraltar giveaway are Mark Fahey and David Cahill, who correctly answered. James McLean and Conor Harahan have combined 11 goals, 10 for McLean. Harahan's free kick against Georgia. We're back live at Match Commentary tonight. OTB AM is back live from 7:30 tomorrow. I'm going to leave you with this. Ex-Dublin footballer Paddy Christie joined Diarmuid Ling as part of the beautiful Clean Coast campaign currently spreading throughout the country. Join us and register your beach clean today at cleancoast.org.
I'm delighted to team up with Clean Coast for this year's Coca-Cola Clean Coast Week. Running from the 1st to the 9th of June, the campaign aims to empower and to encourage communities around the country to engage with and to protect our maritime resources, something that's of obvious benefit to all of us. Podgy was talking about it with like the possibility of playing games, like going to the beach, playing a game, bit of a beach clean afterwards. Like that's where the GA teams can contribute to the idea of the Clean Coast stuff in some way. Just looking at different ways in which you can, but sure you can start by introducing yourself maybe and we'll chat more.
Paddy Christie, former footballer with Dublin a long time ago. Primary school teacher, principal now out in Kilkenny National School. I'm a father of 2 kids and have 2 dogs as well. Did I mention that?
How has Ballymun, like Kickham's and the area, like last 7, how has that shaped you, do you think, as a dub?
I suppose from the teaching, geography curriculum talks about a sense of place and a sense of space, you know, and when you grow up somewhere it gives you an identity, and that's what people really get pulled back to all the time when they're struggling and they're thinking about leaving a sport or leaving whatever they're doing. When they have friendships and they're bonded to an area, it makes a difference, and I feel like that with the area all the time. Because before you go to somewhere you need to know where you're coming from first, and I suppose that's forgotten about. Even if you look at the history in education, the actual history subject, you know, there's question marks over whether it's going to be long term or is it in the junior cert or whatever. Like the whole idea of history and your place is sort of been put in the back burner a little bit, and it's important that people don't forget that, you know. I think those sort of things mean an awful lot when you're in a crunch match or you're under pressure. I think those sort of things, those intangibles count. And
how do you instill that in young people, like who maybe aren't getting it elsewhere, or who are they getting it elsewhere? Like I don't know. Sometimes I think it's a difficult thing to impress upon a 14 or 15-year-old who maybe is looking out, like how to instill a kind of a value in place or create the conditions in which they might instill within themselves a value of place.
Well, you've hit the nail on the head. When you create the conditions, that's it. You can't tell somebody to be like that. That's not as simple as people automatically think teaching or coaching. So, you just tell them to do that and then they just do it. It doesn't work like that. When you think of the great teachers you had, more than likely there were people who allowed something to flourish in the classroom or in relationships with pupils. They were able to create the conditions that allowed it to thrive by itself. There's something, you know, inside people, and it comes out naturally rather than imposing things on people. So I think, you know, to get back to a club scene or I suppose pupils in schools, how do you create that?
Yeah, like how do we move from, because what you're saying is really interesting about behaviours, how do you move from intellectually knowing these things? You know, we know not to throw litter. Well, we don't all do it, but like it's happening all around us. Like everyone knows not to do it, but they're still doing it because it's convenient to buy a coffee cup instead of carrying your own, you know?
Yeah.
How, and for myself as well, like how to create behavioural change, not how to intellectually understand what changes are needed, you know, that's
you do that naturally without, because you can do it by hounding them and like pressurising them and that sort of thing, but that's a long way from where we are here as well, pressurising people to doing something they don't want to do.
Like again, like there's nobody, we'll say from a GA context, who are looking at something like this and they're saying, yeah, but sure, of course, like don't litter or dispose of your litter responsibly or whatever the phrases are, and we all know this, like, but then we go to a GA pitch and you see after a big game rubbish all over the place, and I just wonder, like, why do I do it? And can I look at Wexford Park or Nolan Park or Crow Park, can I look at them as places that house our games, and I'm not going to defile that by bringing in plastic that's single use. It's it has to wash up on some shore somewhere else and say, right, I'm going to try and maybe not bring it in, maybe I'll bring in something, I don't know, like something that's more sustainable in itself, and bring it away with me instead of like just carelessly thinking that it's somebody else's problem, you know?
Yeah, when you see rubbish scattered around the place, automatically, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but it just brings me down a notch. Just feel straight away like you're on a downer.
During the week, Clean Coast are encouraging communities to go out and get involved in keeping our waterways and our coastlines litter-free. Litter is harmful to our marine environment, and we all know this, so it's up to each of us to dispose of our litter responsibly. For further information, go to cleancoast.org or livehere.lovehere.org. Garda Mahagwif.